Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for September 17th at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Let me do that again. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Thank you for being here. Tonight, I'll ask you to check your mobile devices. Be sure they're on silent or vibrate so that we don't have interruptions during our meeting tonight. I ask all speakers, when you come to the podium, be sure the red light is on the microphone. Push the button, I believe, to the right. We'll get the red light on so that we can get a good recording and presentation tonight. We're delighted to have Reverend Dr. Wayne Johnson, Sr. from Shiloh AME Church with us tonight to bring the invocation. Dr. Johnson, if you will come ahead, and then we'll remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance, be led by our County Attorney, J.R. Simpson.
Let us pray. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised. Our gracious God, our Father, our Creator of all humankind, we thank you for this opportunity to come before your presence before any business is conducted in this place, to seek your heavenly divine guidance and direction, not only for our lives, but for us as residents of Burke County. We would pray that you would shower your mercy and your grace upon us, that all that we do will be pleasing in your sight. We ask now that you would grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour. Be thou with us and help us, O Lord, to always lift up our heads to the hills, lift up our eyes to the hills from which cometh our help, and know that our help comes from the Lord. We say in our coinage and on our currency, in God we trust. Our hope, our faith, our trust, O God, is in you. Bless the world in which we live. Bless these United States, and bless the state of North Carolina and the county of Burke, we pray. And together we all say, amen.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Please join us with the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for leading our pledge. This brings us to item 4 on the agenda tonight, approval of agenda. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda in advance. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Item 5 on the agenda tonight is approval of meeting minutes. We have several groups of minutes to approve. May the 7th, 2024, Board of Commissioner pre-agenda meeting. May 21, 2024, BOC regular meeting. June the 4th, 2024, Board of Commission pre-agenda meeting. And June 18th, 2024, Board of Commissioner regular meeting. I hope you've had time to look at those, and if so, I'll entertain motion for approval.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve it.
Mr. Smith, all those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. This brings us to item 6, presentations. We have one presentation tonight. This will be coming from our Senior Services Director as a departmental update and proclamation, Roxanne Powell. Thank you for being here tonight. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Here today to give a brief update on our Senior Services Department. Next slide. We're going to start with a little bit of a history of our senior centers. The Burke Senior Center on the left side, formerly known as the Morganton Burke Senior Center, is the result of a special interest group made up of local seniors here in the county and the city of Morganton, and utilizing grants to fund the construction of the existing building with an opening date of October 1984. In the mid-1990s, the County of Burke took over the daily operations of the center and eventually gained full ownership of the facility in 2008. Burke County also became the first county to offer 2 senior centers in the Unifor region, with the second edition of a East Burke Senior Center in 1997. Both centers are recognized by the North Carolina Department of Aging with its highest distinction as Senior Centers of Excellence. This is an operations and performance certification, which is renewable every 5 years and supported with grant funding for each of the centers. All right, next slide. All right. So today's senior centers are community focal points for active older adults to connect with vital community services that can help them stay healthy and independent. Senior centers work with community partners to provide access to health, economic security, social engagement, purpose, creativity, mobility, nutrition, all in a social and fun environment. So some of the things that you might find at our senior centers are nutrition services, health, fitness, and wellness activities, information, assistance, and referral services, social and recreational activities, education and art programs, caregiver support, vision and veteran support groups, volunteer opportunities, Medicare counseling, advocacy events, to name a few of the things. We also house a Veteran Services Department at our Senior Center in Morganton, and we are one of only 3 known AARP chapters for the deaf and hard of hearing in the state of North Carolina. I'd like to also share that during the calendar year of 2023, 994 Medicare counseling contacts were completed with a total savings to our Burke County clients in the amount of $1,068,169. So there are many activities and programs that are offered at both of our centers. Therefore, each of our senior centers publish a monthly newsletter and a calendar of events. This is the first place that we encourage folks to look to find out more about what our centers are providing, and we encourage folks to get on our email distribution list or to stop in our senior centers and pick up a copy. Next slide. Okay. As mentioned in one of the previous slides, the Burke Senior Center was established in 1984, marking this year as our 40th anniversary. In recognition, both senior centers have planned special events, and the community has been invited to participate in the activities and join us for open house and to learn more about the services offered and to take a tour of our facilities. On September 14th, the East Burke Senior Center hosted a resource fair with music, food, and unfortunately the auto show was postponed due to the threatening weather that night. But coming up this week on Friday, September 20th, the Burke Senior Center, located here in Morganton, is hosting an open house. We're going to be showcasing some of our heritage arts that have been created inside of our center. Additionally, we have various activities and demonstrations that are scheduled almost every hour throughout the whole day. Current participants will come together for a barbecue dinner, and this will be followed by a dance party and celebration from 6 to 9 p.m. Next slide. Okay. So September 2024, National Senior Center Month. Celebrated every year in September, National Senior Center Month is a time to shine a light on our senior centers, showing the entire nation how vital they are to the health and well-being of our communities. This year's theme is Powering Connections. Senior centers have evolved since their beginning in the 1940s through their inclusion in the Older Americans Act in 1973 and up until today. But our mission has remained the same, to be the local, trusted place in the community that connects people to the programs, services, and opportunities they need to age well. I'd like to also share that we have received a grant from the Dogwood Health Trust, and we're targeting digital inclusion with this money. These funds, we are able to purchase multiple laptops, tablets for our senior centers, and our goal is to better equip the older adults in our community through guided workshops and trainings, both in person and in the virtual classroom. Next slide. So lastly, in recognition of the 40 years of service and in support of Senior Center Month, we're presenting to you today a request for the approval of a proclamation celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Burke County Senior Center and also declaring September as Senior Center Month.
All right, thank you, Roxanne. Great report, and let me just say on behalf of the board how pleased we are and proud of all the work that takes place at our senior centers. They are definitely happening places. So if you haven't been by, maybe you would qualify or like to be a part, I would encourage you to check those centers out here in Morganton and then on the eastern end of the county as well at our East Burke Senior Center. They are doing a terrific job. We do have a proclamation in front of us. I won't read all of that proclamation tonight, but I do want to highlight just one or two comments. Whereas the Burke County Board of Commissioners honors the tireless efforts of the staff, volunteers, and supporters of the Senior Center, whose commitment and compassion have made the Burke County Senior Center a beacon of support and care for 4 decades. And whereas we recognize the continuing importance of the Burke County Senior Center as our senior population grows, and we commit to ensuring its future success in meeting the evolving needs of our older adults. Be it resolved that the Burke County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim September as Senior Center Month in Burke County and proudly commemorates the 40th annual day of observance of the Burke County Senior Center, expressing our deepest gratitude to all those who have contributed to its success and the well-being of our senior community. So with that, I'd like for us just to give these folks a hand tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. I'll entertain a motion at this time or any comments that you might have.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the report as presented and approve proclamation number 2024-13.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Roxanne, again, thank you for being with us tonight. All right, this brings us to scheduled public hearings tonight. We do have 2 scheduled public hearings. First one comes from Community Development, Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2024-09 and public hearing. This will be presented tonight by the applicant from BDI, Alan Wood, and then also Alan Glines. So at this time, Mr. Wood and Mr. Glines, if you'll come forward.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, commissioners, members of the public, staff. You are reviewing a rezoning request, ZMA 2024-09, for 5 parcels requesting conditional zoning to industrial conditional district covering 745 acres located in the western part of the county. This is an aerial, sort of a location map here. This is Lake James, this is I-40, and Morganton is right here. This is the county line right there. This slide is an aerial photo. There are 5 parcels which are included in the rezoning. This is the largest one, about 500 plus acres. 10 acres here, less than an acre here, and 2 tracts over here on the east side of US 70. I-40 again is at the bottom of the map, and this is the Dysartsville Road exit. This is US 70 running through the area as well, and Soul Mole Street is kind of right here. Most of the access comes from I-40 at Dysartsville Road and at those US 70 locations. Just for a distance standpoint, from this point to here, that's about a half mile running through there. So this is a table, we're calling it Exhibit A, but it shows the 5 parcels on it and the addresses that we have in the record. It notes their current zoning, and we have 4 zoning types there. And they're all requesting similar zoning called Industrial Conditional District -1. The acreage is noted there. As you can see, the 550-acre tract, the largest one, is a split zone tract, but it's mostly industrial, also has general business. The other ones are noted there as well. 2 of the parcels, the ones noted at the bottom here, these are on the east side of 70, US 70 West. They're also under the scenic overlay, and the request is to remove that from those 2 parcels, part of the request. There we go. So this is a map showing the current zoning for these tracts of land. We've utilized just sort of some numbering just to kind of help us keep track, but 1, 2, and 3 are the parcels on the closest to Dysertsville Road at I-40. And parcels 4 and 5 are the ones off of US 70 West at Sawmall Street. Just for some background, there's been a lot of attention over the years considering zoning for this area. As you can see from the map, the majority of the largest tract has actually been zoned industrial since at least 1997, along with quite a few of the areas around it. The I-40 corridor was identified back then as the most likely factor to encourage additional economic development, and the zoning was focused then along this corridor. We didn't have zoning all over Burke County, but along the I-40 corridor and the communities surrounding there we did, early as 1997. Some longtime residents may remember the discussion about placing a landfill at this location. This type of discussion surely inspired additional study of the land around Lake James, and this commenced in the early 2000s. Maybe folks here were involved in that. In that period of time, a lake and river overlay were developed, as well as scenic overlay. Around 2008, this area received its current zoning classifications that are shown on this map. So the 5 parcels represent 4 different zoning categories. As I noted, the largest parcel is split zoned between industrial, which is about 440 of those acres, and general business, about 110 acres. The 2 smaller parcels, these are the ones I'm referring to, 2 and 3. Almost 10-acre tract, number 2 is zoned R3, which is residential 3, and the other corner is zoned GB, general business. Under this zoning request, those 2 small parcels would be utilized for buffering should the proposal be approved. The parcels on the east side of US 70 are zoned planned residential mixed use here and R3 here. So a little bit about those zoning districts. Industrial zone permits a wide range of industrial and manufacturing uses for larger parcels of land located with sufficient transportation, access, and needed utilities. The general business zone areas, which are in red, permits a range of non-residential commercial uses, including shopping centers, gas station, restaurants, office space, construction companies, etc. Access to sufficient roadway infrastructure and along with needed utility improvements are expected. The light blue one, planned residential mixed-use zone, is a mixed-use residential and commercial district that permits a limited list of non-residential uses such as retail, office, shopping centers, that sort of thing, and a wide variety of residential uses as well to support that. And then the residential 3 zone is the most flexible residential district we have in the Burke County zoning toolbox. It permits single-family homes, duplexes, multifamily, manufactured homes, mobile home parks, as well as churches, schools, and similar uses. I want to give you a little more background on the scenic overlay. So this is the scenic overlay for Burke County. Lake James is here. This is I-40 running along the bottom of the map. This is Dysartsville Road. This is our big tract, and we've got the other one, the other two parcels outlined as well. They are the first two tracts in the scenic overlay kind of zoning layer, and you can see how it follows the lake. Now, except for right here, most of scenic overlay doesn't touch the water, and so it sort of surrounds areas around the lake. And it was part of implementing a Lake James Phase 2 small area plan in 2005. It was brought to the Board of Commissioners back then in pieces. And it's meant to sort of manage and limit, really, access to different types of commercial, non-residential uses throughout that area. The overlay, like I said, mostly it's not lakefront properties. The commercial and retail types of uses actually follow very similarly to the planned residential mixed use, which probably was developed later. But you can have commercial developments up to 99,000 square feet, office uses up to almost 30,000 square feet, single-family, multifamily, motels, hotels, construction companies, golf course, mini storage, grocery stores, all with a special use permit requirement. And then most activities that could be classified as manufacturing or other more impactful activities from a land use standpoint are not permitted under scenic overlay. The scenic overlay doesn't have design criteria to follow, so it's not like a design review area. But it does have, it does encourage building colors to be earth tone and building materials to focus on brick, masonry, wood shake, board batten, or stucco. When a non-residential use in scenic overlay is adjacent to a residential area, there would be a buffer of 30 feet that would be required. Now that buffer is one of the larger ones we have in Burke County in our zoning code for normal properties. So you can see the brown hash areas. Our parcels are right here, the first two going into that district and traveling from along Dysartsville Road to US 70 West. And the proposed site buffers that would come along with the conditional zoning, I'll describe momentarily, but they'll screen views for any uses internal to these sites. So it might be a trade-off or replacement for goals of coming out of scenic overlay. Now, this is Exhibit C, the site conditions map. This is transitioning now to discuss the conditional zoning request. Conditional zoning gives the county the ability to manage certain land uses based on the underlying zoning district while managing compatibility with the surrounding area and prohibiting uses that would be unwanted. This current application is considered to be more restrictive than the industrial base district and the general standards in the zoning code as well, by way of the proposed included impact buffers that are proposed with the conditions. Any specific conditions approved stay with the land regardless of who owns that land. The conditions must be agreed to by both property owner and the Board of Commissioners. So it's meant to be a discussion or a reviewed together kind of standards. So we provided a list of conditions, and they're part of the Exhibit B, and they were included in the staff packet and staff reports and provided earlier. But how were they developed, you might ask? The zoning conditions are shaped through a combination of public input, the feedback received from various stakeholders, and negotiations. And this has included listening to and receiving concerns shared by the public about view sheds, potential user impacts, water quality concerns, and specific manufacturing activities to be avoided. The environmental community, including Foothills Conservancy, Catawba Riverkeeper, and the Lake James Environmental Association, provided a list of recommendations concerning buffers, stream issues, water capture, post-development, and view sheds, and some manufacturing uses to be removed from consideration as well. Their expertise provided additional context and knowledge of environmental matters for the site conditions to customize them. This information has been reviewed and negotiated back and forth by Burke Development as the applicant and liaison with the property owners and the Burke commissioners. The conditional zoning application provides for specific conditions that go with the land, as I said, should this be approved. The conditions are spelled out in that report, denoted as Exhibit B, and these conditions are the same conditions that were shared with the public during the public forum in early August, and also the planning board meeting in late August. So what do those include? Well, this map reflects the kind of the write-up of those conditions, but I'll go over them for you. So for parcels 1, 2, and 3, remember those are 1, 2, and 3, the parcels on the west side of US 70 and right above here at I-40. The largest buffer by width will be along I-40, as shown on this map, so that vistas moving through the area along I-40, coming in both directions, are protected and preserved. That's something we heard during public comment. This buffer width is proposed to be 300 feet through this area. The roadside buffer is also provided along Dysartsville Road and Highway 70. So Dysartsville Road, Highway 70. And that is proposed to be 150 feet wide. And will be the same width behind those homes that front on Highway 70. So they'll have a guaranteed buffer of 150 feet behind their property. This will only be interrupted by DOT-approved and managed driveways and utility corridors as needed through the site. We want to limit those, any kind of corridors cutting through there. On the west side of the largest tract, so here's the largest tract, here's the west side, a 200-foot wide buffer of trees will remain to screen any activity up on the site. Several streams and their buffers also pass through this side as well, flowing down to Muddy Creek. And streams will also be protected according to this map. So these are stream areas. From watershed rules, we tend to regulate stream buffers for 30 feet from the top of bank. That's kind of a standard. But the conditions proposed in the conditional zoning go way beyond that. And the goal would be to provide, under the conditions, a 75-foot undisturbed buffer for each side of that stream, so it's over double, with an additional buffer averaging an additional 75 feet, so totaling 150 feet each side of the stream as mapped on this conditions map. So this space here to here, right through here, represents 150 feet each side of the stream. So that's encouraging to protect water quality. So between the stream buffers and the property line buffers in this area on parcels 1, 2, and 3, totaling, those areas total about 35% of the site would be protected through buffers. Okay, stormwater features are also included in the conditions. And this is managing stormwater during the site construction that would occur in the future and any post-construction rain capture. So these standards were proposed by our colleagues at Catawba Riverkeeper to protect streams from runoff during normal rain events. And they are modeled in their approach for what is required in coastal areas that experience large rain events from hurricanes. So I think it'll be helpful. Smaller items, but still important. Site lighting will be required to be full cutoff fixtures. So that reduces night sky light trespass escaping the site. In addition, there will be opportunities for trails through the site to be determined at a later date. For parcels 4 and 5, those are the ones on the right side here. The largest buffers will be along the north side of that track and behind the Snow Hill Church property. The buffers are shown here to be 200 feet along this edge here. I remember during one public comment period, somebody whose family was buried in that cemetery. This place is treasure to them, and they noted that they would appreciate some protection for the cemetery, and I think the 200 feet would do that with the undisturbed woods. In a similar way on this side of the road, along Highway 70, behind those properties here, and along Soul Mole, which is right here, The buffer would be retained at 150 feet wide. Buffers and streams on this side area here, these two parcels, the streams will have that same standard of 75 feet undisturbed along each stream side, and an additional to total out to 150 feet each side of the stream. And between those stream buffers and the property line buffers, about 35% of the land area in these two tracts is protected through buffers. All the other restrictions would also apply to those tracts as well. And I need to get one set of documents here. The conditions also restrict some industrial uses that were identified mostly from community input. And I'll just read these to you. It's a list here. So these following uses are not permitted as a part of this rezoning to industrial conditional district for these tracts in the future, should this document be approved. This would be mining and quarry operations, carbon black production plant or facility, raw ore and mineral processing facilities, asphalt and concrete production facility, landfill and toxic incinerator operations, garbage disposal services, scrap yards, metal plating and finishing. All those are off the list. So I'm going to transition now to notes about the Blueprint Burke Plan. Oops, I'm sorry. I do have this slide here. This is written down. This is part of the conditions, standards for streams and those kinds of things, and they're part of what's been in a graphic format. It's sort of written out here in this table, but similar to what I described to you all. Okay, so the Blueprint Burke Plan is our comprehensive plan for Burke County. This was adopted on 10/18/20. Oops, that's the wrong date. I'm sorry. October 18th, 2024 was the date that the Blueprint Burke Plan came to Board of Commissioners and was adopted. It was part of Ordinance 2022-07. We have a lot of just attention given to studying what's in the Blueprint Burke Plan, the comp plan, because we're considering rezoning. And when you consider rezoning, you have to consider your comprehensive plan and see how it meshes with goals that are identified in the plan. So I'll go over some of those areas with you. So in the plan, we discuss a lot about the industrial past of Burke County. It's part of the heritage here, and it needs to be acknowledged. The Blueprint Burke Plan, though, also uses this as a reference point to address the future and what industrial development and manufacturing mean to the future of Burke County as well. There are a number of strategies about growth and revamping of manufacturing to address new opportunities and clean industrial uses. An excerpt from the plan, I'll share with you a few things, makes references to the following goals and vision. Section 5, Vision and Goal Statement. The Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan seeks to promote planned economic, recreational, and residential growth in harmony with areas most suitable for development while preserving community character and protecting the county's rural and natural areas. In the same section, it says plan for economic and residential growth along key transportation corridors, including North Carolina 70, Interstate 40, NC 18, and NC 64. Identify additional industrial and manufacturing sites that can be ready to serve new or existing industrial users. One of the goals of the plan. Under this Section 6, Population Development and Employment Trends, there's a note that industrial and manufacturing uses have grown. in our community. Parker Industries on the south end of the county was rebuilt after they had a fire at their site. They expanded on-site. Also, a new manufacturing expansion was approved for Unix Packaging. That's back on track up there at Cathy Road. In Morganton, they had the Ekroness Furniture Facility, had a double expansion to increase production lines happening here. And industrial use is an activity including resource extraction, manufacturing, warehousing, storage, distribution, shipping, and related uses. And according to the figures of the American Community Survey, 24% of the workforce in Burke County is engaged in manufacturing, industrial, shipping, and warehouse uses. And then we have other things that we do here too, of course. We have healthcare, social assistance, and Burke County continues to be a place that is strong for manufacturing in western North Carolina, and in fact, probably higher percentage of manufacturing here than many areas of the state. So it's historical, but it continues into the future. We noted that from 2021 data, since earlier days, manufacturing has retooled with new investments in automation and modernization to meet current demands while employing fewer workers. Workers in modern factories are often highly skilled technicians who manage specialized automated equipment. The manufacturing sector is also facing a worker shortage, which is being addressed by Western Piedmont Community College and Catawba Valley Community College, both of whom have robust programs to train workers for skilled trades in support of the manufacturing sector. So we can train up our workforce to be ready for newer manufacturing jobs. We always study worker commuting data, and there was a point-in-time study from the period of the plan a few years back. Western Piedmont Council of Governments keeps track of worker data for Burke County and surrounding counties. The commuting patterns over time do change somewhat, but currently, Burke County loses more workers to neighboring counties on a daily basis. But we also have a number of folks coming into the county for their job as well. And trying to understand this information, the reasons our residents would leave the community must vary for each person. But surely if we had the right position or job here, some of those workers would stay, and we'd have kind of stay in our community, work in our community, live here. Although my data is older, at the time of the plan, 2021, 2022, that number was close to 11,000 people leaving the county for work. While we hope to grow our community, and we have strategies for that, we have these out commuters who may be a resource for local employee base here. A little further in the plan, Section 7, some of Burke County's strengths. The economy here in Burke County is diverse with a broad range of employment sectors. Compared to other metro areas, the economy here is more diverse than many communities in North Carolina. Burke County has many natural resources, including a large supply of water, and the Catawba River provides an important drinking water source for thousands of residents. Electric power generation in the Catawba Valley is unmatched, and the power grid is crisscrossed with redundancies, making electric power safe and secure for the benefit of residents and business entities operating here. Under Section 8, existing zoning districts and mapping, primary land uses tend to be located in specific areas of the county. That's what's noted in the plan. For example, agricultural land is primarily located in the eastern part of the county, while industrial and commercial land uses are most commonly likely to be found along the I-40 corridor. Seems like our property that we're considering tonight. This is relevant for framing why land uses come to certain areas. Under Section 9, land use policies and action steps, economic development goal is noted here to provide positive economic climate that encourages business to prosper, provides citizens with good paying full-time jobs, supports entrepreneurship, and helps businesses to succeed, promotes growth in a flexible, fair, and efficient manner. In addition, economic development will occur where there is sufficient population and infrastructure, that's road access, water, sewer, power, to support it. In Burke County, most of the economic growth will occur following the I-40 corridor and close to our towns. We have other goals here and notes. These were encourage infrastructure expansion in cooperation with our partners in the community, work with Burke Development Incorporated to identify opportunities to retain and encourage expansion of existing industries and businesses and relocation of new ones. Coordinate and support Western Piedmont Community College for classes for advanced worker training in critical technical areas. Promote existing and develop future pre-certified industrial park projects within Burke County and Burke County's municipalities and adjoining counties, so cooperation with our neighbors. Promote quality of life benefits to businesses and residents considering relocating to Burke County. We have our natural beauty, our access to the outdoors, which we're strengthening all the time, vibrant small towns, low crime, excellent schools, and outstanding health care. High quality of life issues will draw new residents, visitors, and businesses and help retain existing ones. So we hope to grow our community with these quality of life concerns being addressed. And finally, one of the notes in that section of the report of the plan was, under section 9, was 1.9. Consider adding conditional zoning as an option for parcels within Burke County. This was back in 2022 when it was adopted. Conditional zoning allows the customized conditions between the developer and the county commissioners to manage specific uses. So that was identified in the Blueprint Burke plan back then, and this is what we brought to the Board of Commissioners earlier this year. So we have conditional zoning now. The plan identifies goals for transportation, working on to modernize all of our I-40 interchanges, which we need to do. We all know that. Goals for infrastructure, such as work with water and sewer providers to identify underserved areas and areas with growth potential to expand services. And this would be a cooperative effort. And also a natural environment goal, to protect and support and enjoy Burke County's natural environment through stewardship of its natural resources, managing forest resources, and expanding recreational opportunities. Burke County has an amazing natural environment, which is one of the primary assets of our county. The goal of this section is to maintain the health of the environment through the work of the county and partner agencies. Many environmental regulations are in place to protect and maintain these sensitive natural resources. And so one of the action steps was work closely with other county and state departments to ensure that land use activities have a minimal negative impact on the natural environment. So we transition now to the future land use map. This is the entire of Burke County. The future land use map is used to evaluate growth strategies for Burke County over the next 10 years or so. It was part of the comp plan document. And this plan, the map, must be consulted by staff, the planning board, and the board of commissioners when a map amendment applications are received. The zoning request is measured against the goals identified in the Blueprint Burke plan for consistency and with the future land use map. Now, under 160D, which provides the operating framework for zoning in cities and counties across North Carolina, the comp plan must contain many things, but among them, a pattern of desired growth and development, characteristics of future land uses. We accomplish this by using the future land use map, and this is supported by the various goals and strategies that are identified throughout the plan, many of which I went over. So this is the future land use map for this kind of small area around the parcels included. I'll just remind everybody, this is the main track. Here's a smaller one, not included in industrial at this time. And this smaller one here, which is future land use, would be general business. And then the two tracks across on the east side of US 70 West are showing industrial as a future land use. So the industrial district, this is part of the plan, is established as a district in which the principal use of the land is for manufacturing, warehousing, transportation, and utility uses. These uses generally occupy large tracts of land where operations involved do not detract from the development potential of nearby undeveloped properties. After our review of the Blueprint Burke plan, another important characteristic that's been noted is access from an NCDOT maintained roadway, such as I-40 or US 70 West. The majority of the 745 acres are already in the industrial future land use category as shown on this map. And the two smallest parcels adjacent to I-40, those two, this one and this very small one, would be added to industrial as a future land use because they support the conditional zoning request by buffering the site. That's buffer area for this project. So I hope to transition now to the water flow maps for Burke County. Let's see, I've got that one. Okay. So we've heard a fair bit about watersheds in Burke County, and we thought we'd provide a map to kind of discuss and show some of that water flow and watershed. In this map, this is Morganton up here. I know it's a little different for some of our orientations for north-south, but this is Morganton. This is I-40, and this is US 70, and here's Lake James. The parcels that are part of the conditional zoning are right here. This is the same orientation. Dysartsville Road comes in, US 70. These are the 5 tracks, beg your pardon. And here's water flow. So this is the south end of Lake James with the dams here. What you might notice from this map, this is relative topography. It's kind of hard to tell, but these parcels and the edge of the lake here are pretty much at the same elevation. That was a question that I heard about for clarification, but they're not exactly, the land varies, there's a lot of undulation, but they're fairly similar in their elevation from here to here. But all the water coming out of Lake James flows down, and this is a watershed pour point, pours out of there. So it's pour point, flows down and follows and creates the main channel of the Catawba River. Now what happens back here from our site is not on Muddy Creek, but it's what happens here on these tracts of land, it flows towards Muddy Creek, into Muddy Creek, and Muddy Creek joins with the old Catawba stem, which is the old river section that kind of goes through here, but is secondary now to the main pour point right here. And all that joins together become the watershed for Catawba River. Great map. The second slide is a Burke County watershed map. So this one's turned north is at the top of the map. This is a beautiful watershed map. It's oriented north and south, just like normal, like you're usually seeing it. Of course, Lake James is noted here. And every triangle, that's the pour point. That's where all that stream pours into the next water feature. It might be a lake, probably in this area it's all lake. But we show our watersheds, and this watershed is the Silver Creek Catawba River watershed, quite large, as you see here. Some of these things, this Henry Fork River, I know it's the edge of our county, but it heads the other direction. It's the South Fork of the Catawba River. Interesting to see that. And of course, we have Linville and Lake James forming one watershed here. We've got the Warrior Fork Catawba River watershed, Johns River, Lower Creek, all that. And once again, the Great Meadows is on the map. You see it here, and it's not going to affect Lake James water. It won't happen. Okay, as the Board of Commissioners know, the process for rezoning is a legislative matter, following procedures laid out in 160D. Staff have reviewed the types of considerations, background, and goals found in the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. That was adopted in 2022, and have shared quite a number of those goals and priorities with you. Comprehensive plans, which are required under 160D for communities that have zoning in place, are advisory in nature without independent regulatory effect. But adopting a zoning amendment requires consideration of the plan, which has been provided herein. Adoption of the rezoning would support the economic goals of the county by supporting the workforce and economic base of Burke County for one of the strongest sectors of our local economy. The specific location for the rezoning application is not arbitrary in the county, since the area is well placed with immediate highway access from I-40 and state-maintained US 70 West, with infrastructure that can be brought to the site. The conditional district standards with the extended perimeter buffers will screen the use and protect other neighboring property, and the stream buffers will protect water resources close to the site and, of course, downstream through the Catawba River Basin. These customized standards will mitigate potential impacts to the surrounding community. These conditions were developed based on ideas and concerns shared by members of our community. All map amendments, of course, when they come to you all through a rezoning application, must be reviewed by our planning board for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So the planning board met on August 22nd, 2022, just shortly last month to hear the rezoning request. Staff presented the report, and the chair invited the applicant to also share their request. The chair opened the floor to public comment. We had 13 people speak at that public meeting. The list of speakers was provided in a file for the record in our office. There were comments in support and opposition to the rezoning request. After several attempts at a motion and clarification of another motion, a final motion was made to approve the ZMA 2024-09 application intact and as proposed. And that was a 4-1 vote to recommend approval. Now, they also requested that 2 parcels close to these tracks, but not in the map, not in the consideration, but up here, they requested that those 2 parcels have their future land use map adjusted. And we will be taking that up in the following planning board, public hearing topic of ZTA 2024-02, which follows this hearing itself. At this point, I can conclude for now. I know Mr. Wood wanted to share some slides with you as well.
Thank you, Alan. We'll hear from Mr. Wood.
Good afternoon, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity. I am Alan Wood. I am President and CEO of Burke Development. Have been there for almost 11 years now. We are a 501c3, which we have an independent board made up of 18 members that guide us and we report to on a monthly basis. The makeup of that is a local government managers and board members, as well as business and industry leaders. We, BDI, along with McDowell Economic Development, have this property under option. We have known and considered this property for quite some time, as we've noted on a lot of the plans. I've got some things that I'm not going to try to replicate what Alan said, so I'll move through those as quickly as I can because I know a lot of people have things to say. The current property owners have owned this property for roughly 50 years. This is private property. This is not, and nor has it been public property to my knowledge at any time. It was last timbered somewhere around 35 years ago. This land was planted with timber in the plan that it would be timbered again. So these is managed under Timber Resources right now. And that timber will be harvested under the current ownership and under the current way this property is zoned. And it would be timbered based on the setbacks that currently exist. I want you to bear that in mind because they're nowhere near as restrictive as what we're putting on this in the conditional zoning request. I think that's very important to remember. This is a map of where large projects have been announced in North Carolina. I think this is very important for you to look at. Do you see where there is a void in the state? Just happens to be west of I-77 and where we currently live. Of all the announcements that I call major in the billion-dollar range thereabouts, there's been one in western North Carolina. That was Pratt Whitney in Asheville. We've had some nice announcements here, manufacturing-wise. The largest one of those is about $100 million, and there were a couple of those. Catawba County has had some nice manufacturing, but nothing that raises it to the elevation of what we're talking about this evening. Mr. Glines touched on the rezoning and the land use. As recently as we can find, in 2005, all of this property was zoned industrial. Somewhere after that point, I think around 2008, we had the current land uses that you saw on the map. But also, there is south of I-40, and then there is a piece contiguous, and we'll see that. You'll see it's on the northwest side. There's 66 acres there that is currently and has been zoned industrial for better than 30 years. So we are looking at not only what part of the current zoning is, but how it had been in the past. I was not present when the zoning was changed. I would have strongly recommend that that not occur, because this has been considered for industrial use for many, many years. With the transportation corridor, et cetera, I think it's important that we keep that in mind when we look at the request this evening. Mr. Glines has already gone over the conditions. I bear no thought of having to do that again, but this is a very important piece. Roughly 240 acres of this will be buffered, which means it will not be timbered or graded for use. You compare that to the current uses, you're probably 3 or 4 times as restrictive with what we're doing, and still allowing for the development of this site. It is more restrictive than anything would be on the overlay plan as well. So even though we are asking for a change of use, we're putting conditions in place that keep this property safe for future use, and we will further restrict it by the uses that would not be allowed. I think it's very important to think about that as we move forward. Since 2022, there's been roughly $72 billion of automotive investment in the Southeast. None of that has occurred in Burke County. Let's think about it. $72 billion in the Southeast, and this map shows we're right in the middle of that, and this site would have the opportunity to be a supplier for those auto manufacturers. These are the closest one. Well, just think about what the BMW project has meant to Greenville, South Carolina. We'll never have anything on that scale, but we have an opportunity to participate in that marketplace. There have been questions asked, well, is there demand for this type of site? These are 2022 numbers, the last numbers I had. There were 15 projects that came to our economic development partnership that would have required a site of this size to have met those requirements. That's 500,000 square feet and up, and some of those were well over 1 million square feet. So there is demand, and there continues to be demand for this type of site. Questions about, what could a project mean on this site? So we had some economic modeling done. We did one for a $1.5 billion project, and then this is the larger one. This was a $3.5 billion economic development project. And this type of project, if it's developed as a campus, would stand on this site. The labor there would be roughly equivalent to 12% of the entire labor earned, or the entire wages earned in Burke County today, one site. You're looking at roughly 35% of the total tax base as it stands in Burke County today, between 30 and 35%. Our total tax base is roughly $10.6 billion. On this one site, you're looking at something that could change the entire face as far as what Burke County can do for the future. This is the site just to show you what modern economic development looks like. This was a Continental facility in Texas, note buffering around that. This was the Scout facility that was announced a little over a year ago in Blackwood, South Carolina. I'm very familiar with that site. It was immediately adjacent to, or it is immediately adjacent to I-85, just north of Columbia. And while our site is not this big, it does give you a frame of reference on what modern manufacturing looks like. Our focus would be automotive, aerospace, and continuing to look at advanced manufacturing. Mr. Gline stated that we're between 24 and 25% manufacturing. We don't see that changing. We think that manufacturing needs to continue to grow. You have to have new facilities for this to happen. There are currently no modern manufacturing buildings available in Burke County or the surrounding area on the marketplace today. By modern manufacturing, I'm talking about facilities with roof heights of 20 foot or higher. Roughly 30 feet is what's acceptable, with modern dock doors and road access. These do not exist anywhere in North Carolina. I have a report that was done, or in our part of North Carolina, that study we had done in October of last year. That has not changed. So we have a dearth of manufacturing facilities. I think this is a very interesting slide. We are at 31% below the state average wage. State average wage, last numbers was $64,409. Burke County is $45,083. We are 17% behind Catawba County, and this one startled me. We're 7% below Caldwell County. That one sort of startled me a little bit. And what that means is that you see an outflow of our labor force. Once again, Mr. Glines alluded to this. These are the most recent numbers that are available from our COG. 21,000 people a day, 53% of our labor force leaves Burke County to work somewhere else. Why is that important? Because generally people will spend money where they work. So that drains our sales tax revenue as well as taking people away from their homes. The net outflow is 8,400 people. So that's still roughly 20 to 25% of our labor force net after you figure inflow and outflow. 8,400 people a day net leave Burke County to work somewhere else. To put that in reference, Catawba County is the only county in our region that actually has a net inflow. And we generate roughly 3,000 people a day net flowing into Catawba County to work, and another 3,000 plus going to Mecklenburg County. It is my supposition that if we have jobs that provide the wages and opportunities, that our people would like to stay home. This will be really my last slide, but I want to make a few points here. Burke County is roughly 22 million acres of property, 508 square miles. Roughly 30% of the county is tied up in public lands at the current time. Parks, state and federal, public lands that belong to the state, local governments, schools. Roughly 30% over 6 million acres. That land will never change uses. This site is 3/100ths of the total land mass of Burke County. So on 3/100ths of the total land mass, we have the potential to generate 20 to 30% of your tax base. This doesn't exist anywhere else in the county. The infrastructure is not there. The infrastructure, the road access, it does not exist. There is other land, but it is in places where industrial development is not viable. Total available industrial property in Burke County right now is less than 400 acres. That includes 100 acres in Drexel, which we've been working to redevelop for quite some time. That includes the 50 acres that's in the business park. I will make a point there. The total cost on that site was $3.33 million when it was purchased by the partners on that. To my knowledge, that was all the local money that was spent. Everything else that we've done since I've been here is grant supported. So that's the kind of development that we want to do. We've backfilled every vacant building that we have. If this land is not retained or is not developed as industrial property, your access or opportunities for economic growth in the industrial phase in the future is severely limited. We don't look at this as trying to create Charlotte or Asheville. We don't want to see that. But you have to have opportunities to keep your youth in your community. Right now, with our demographics, if it continues to go in that direction, we'll lose roughly 4,000 people out of our labor force in the next 10 years. I'm not trying to say this to scare you. I'm just saying that these are the numbers that are reality as it exists today. I would like to provide economic opportunity to keep our people home. I would like to do it in such a way that our environment is secure. And this is the location that we feel meets those goals. I appreciate your time this evening and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wood, Mr. Glines, for all that information. This time, gentlemen, any questions for these guys before I open the public hearing? All right, seeing here none, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and I'll ask our clerk to call the names of those folks who have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Do we have the Lake James Environmental Association, Catawba River Keeper, and Foothills Conservancy present?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the opportunity to come comment on the conditional rezoning request submitted by BDI on behalf of Great Meadows. As some of you know, my name is Shane Prisby with Foothills Conservancy of North Carolina, and I'm joined today by Grant Buckner with Catawba River Keeper and Joanne Deo with Lake James Environmental Association. Collectively, our three nonprofit organizations are the leading environmentally focused groups in Burke and McDowell counties. When we learned about the potential industrial megasite in October 2023, we requested meetings with BDI in Burke County to get more information and share our thoughts and concerns. After those initial meetings, we developed and proposed to the county a set of conservation restrictions and environmental safeguards to help reduce potential adverse environmental impacts to the rural communities, forests, Muddy Creek, and the Catawba River should industrial development occur. We thank Burke County leadership for listening to and evaluating our recommendations and including many of those in the rezoning request. These include stronger stormwater protections, larger stream and wooded buffers than required by the state, and protection of the rural character by including aspects like full cutoff overhead lighting to help maintain dark skies. This unique opportunity speaks to the county's care and prioritization of everyone's natural resources to Burke County as nature's playground. While there's more work to be done on the Great Meadows property, the rezoning request before you represents a step in the right direction and a commitment to help protect the public's land and water, including Lake James, the Catawba River, and the city of Morganton's drinking water supply. Some of our proposed protections were reduced from the original conservation site plan. Specifically, we proposed a, quote, 300-foot minimum buffer or the 100-year floodplain, whichever is greater, be placed along all surface waters and wetlands, end quote. As it stands, the current conditional rezoning includes a riparian buffer with a minimum width of 75 feet and an average width of 100 feet. We also proposed a 300-foot buffer for all public roads, and note that this was reduced to 200 feet along Snow Hill Church Road and 150 feet for Sol Mall Street and Highway 70. Large riparian and viewshed buffers are critical to ensure the protection of our water supply and natural resources. In addition to the conservation suggestions and environmental safeguards, we propose to the county We also submitted a conservation proposal that called for a permanent conservation for multiple parcels of land under purchase option by BDI. These parcels contain steep slopes, sensitive wetlands, and critical river frontage, making them incompatible with large-scale development. We ask that they be permanently conserved as they offer the highest protection for the Catawba River and the public drinking water supply. Additionally, we strongly discourage future rail development due to the high probability of harmful impacts to wetlands and heavily recreated areas such as Muddy Creek Access Area on US 70 and downstream areas of the Catawba River. We want to again thank Burke County staff and the Board of Commissioners for working with our organizations. We look forward to continuing to work with Burke County in pursuing permanent conservation of lands to protect everyone's natural resources. If anyone has any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our organizations as a resource for environmental stewardship. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your comments, and I want to thank you for your participation in helping us get to where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Robert Dunn.
Good evening, I'm Robert Dunn. I'm a citizen of Burke County for 4 decades, off and on. Been asked to come up and speak to you tonight from the experience of an economic developer and a person who deals with an industrial development, but also as someone who learned to water ski on Lake James and understands the value of trout fishing on the river and understanding the care that's gone into trying to be careful with the change that's been placed in your care. I've been fortunate to work in a number of cities and counties throughout the Southeast. Probably been in 50 of these meetings where elected officials are making a once-in-a-lifetime decision to move forward their community. And it's not to be taken lightly. The time and the care that's been placed in your hands and in the hands of the people that, the Riverkeeper and everyone else that's gotten involved in this, it's just tremendous what you're doing. But this is a truly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The jobs that'll be created by this opportunity will be life-changing for hundreds, if not thousands, of your citizens. And it starts here. I have one question to ask. Does everybody in this room use Google? Yeah. Has everybody seen the Google data center in Lenore, North Carolina? Yeah. About $2 billion worth of investment there. Average wage there, a little over $100,000 a year. Sits in the back of a hill. Alan Wood was on the team that put that there. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to present you with a tremendous opportunity. And I would encourage you to move forward on behalf of the citizens of Burke County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Madam Clerk?
Raul Perletta.
Good evening, gentlemen. I am Raul Peralta. I have 25 plus years of economic development experience throughout the state of North Carolina and throughout a region that I call the Great American South. I am here to support the discussion of rezoning and ultimately the economic development efforts that will take place at the Great Meadows site. In keeping with your Burke County All About Advancing slogan or saying, I want to add 2 more what I would call philosophies which are going to dictate what I present to you here in a few minutes. The first one is, if you're not growing, you're shrinking. The second one is, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm sure you've heard them. Let me share with you my philosophy on economic development. Briefly, it's another term for what I would call community building. It's a fundamental block for advancing Burke County. Some of the positive effects that I have been exposed to, and I've been a part of economic development projects, again, throughout North Carolina or the Great American South. And these have been discussed before, but I'll reiterate them. Create jobs, offer employment, encourage the education of our citizens, including the community colleges and high schools, which are now involved in creating a path for a young man or a woman to become involved in a manufacturing role. Improve infrastructure. It's been said before, the roads, water, sewer, power, all will be improved. Stimulate downtown development, housing, and other businesses. Help retain citizens. It's been pointed out here in a very clear way how citizens are leaving the county. This will help us retain them, encourage them to stay within the county. It's been talked about improving the quality of life. And one of the things that happens here is tourism, which is another economic driver, is lifted also through the economic development efforts. Economic development relies on behind-the-scenes work, which is taking place here tonight. I would suggest to you that small communities, rural communities, like where we're standing here tonight, will in fact benefit from economic developments and the rezoning. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Robert Dube, pardon me.
Okay.
Rod Harrelson.
Good evening, gentlemen. I come to you this evening as a resident, not a lifelong resident of this county, but one who's been here since 2004. I come to you as a person who's got 35 plus years in the banking and financial industry. I say to you tonight that the impact that this property would have on the growth of this county is just immeasurable. I, like many people I'm sure in this room, do not enjoy having my taxes raised. When I received my tax bill just recently, I was aghast. If we don't do a project similar to this or multiple projects that will bring up to 16 million in revenues for tax, how can we continue to support it? Our sheriff's department, our schools need to continue to be improved. All of our government employees here would like to have pay raises. If you do that, if you don't do this evening, then you run the risk of having those folks not stay within the community. The job creation in this community is something that is very important to me. I have a grandchild that I raise in this town. I'd love for him to stay in this community. I see so many times where parents have had their children come to us and go through our school system, graduate in the 12th grade, go to college, and never return. Is that what we want? Or do we want to provide them an opportunity here that they might be able to make more than a living wage, which is all that this $40-some thousand is doing for them today? What can we do to help to improve our communities? And that's what I think this project does. It doesn't encumber anything that is going to be out of our own pockets. These things will come to us from grants and from federal government grants and from the state. It will not come out of your pockets. It will not come out of our tax revenues. I see no reason why it shouldn't be approved, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Madam Clerk.
Anthony Starr.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Anthony Starr. I'm the Executive Director for the Western Piedmont Council of Governments. We're an organization that serves the region and includes Alexander, Burke, Caldwell, and Catawba counties. We are the Economic Development District designated by the U.S. Economic Development Administration and the Appalachian Regional Commission. We normally do not speak at public hearings on land use issues, but I recognize that most public comments tend to oppose a project and usually do not hear from folks that are supportive. The Council of Governments prepares and updates a comprehensive economic development strategy called CEDS every few years that aims to provide goals and actions that will improve the local economy and quality of life for our residents. One of the key goals of our SEDS is to develop more industrial and business sites and buildings. This is needed to attract new employers to jobs in a diversified economy. We also need to attract new people to move to our region, and we have accomplished that in the past because we have been known as a place of economic opportunity with wonderful communities in which to live. We are blessed to have forward-thinking local governments like Burke County to make progress for the benefit of the public. One of the challenges we have faced in our region is the loss of over 40,000 manufacturing jobs that began in the early 2000s. Until our economy began to improve in recent years, that was ongoing. With those economic struggles came population stagnation. Our region's population remained flat for a number of years, and some communities lost population. In fact, Burke County is the only county in our region to have less population now than it did in the 2000 census. To put that in perspective, our regional population grew by 9%, and our state grew by 33% in that same period. Aggressive action is needed to build on the recent successes in Burke County. We need projects like Great Meadows to meet our economic goals for growth, to provide good paying jobs, to improve the tax base and local government services to our residents, and to improve the quality of life for the people we serve. If the Board of Commissioners determines that this project has addressed any significant site concerns, we are glad to support this project. Thank you all for volunteering so much of your time to serve as county commissioners. Thank you for your ongoing leadership. Thank you for your partnerships with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments and other local governments in the region.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Madam Clerk.
Meredith Adams.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I sent you guys an email, and Ms. Kay said that she had passed it along, but I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud because I want everybody else to hear it. My address is 2475 US 70 West. It is one of the properties that touches the big section that's going to have the big mega site. None of you live there. None of you are going to have a factory in your backyard breathing those chemicals. Even if you wanted to grow a garden, now those chemicals are in your soil and you're going to eat them. And as far as families staying in this community, my niece, who gave me permission to speak on her behalf, also lives on the property with her husband and their children. They are the 5th generation in our family to be raised on that property. Not in Burke County. We've been in Burke County a lot longer, and there are so many families like mine that have been here for 5 and 6 and 7 generations. My papa was Carl Morrison. He helped found West End Fire Department and Brentwood Water. He worked for years as a volunteer fireman, and he helped get clean, reliable water brought to our community. Why are you guys trying to take that away? My granny was Doris Morrison, who was a devoted member of Snow Hill United Methodist Church. She worked for years as the UMW president, along with many other members, but she helped to bring other churches in for conferences, lead meetings, and create a spiritual refuge in that area. I don't know if any of you have ever been down to our prayer garden, but it has that nice little spring that runs down and the 3 crosses, and it's beautiful. And I'm not even sure if you guys are aware, but did you know that our region, the Appalachian Mountains, are said to be older than bones? That means that when God was making the earth, before he made us, he decided that we needed this area. Who are you to say that you know better than him? Also, why has no one brought up the fact that I've heard families come in and talk about they've heard from their families that there are slave cemeteries on this land? Why has no one looked into that? If there are graves there, then they need to be found and either protected or relocated. You can't just bulldoze on top of them. Those are sacred spaces, and they deserve to be respected. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Madam Clerk.
Carla Adams.
I'm Carla Adams. My daughters said it all. I mean, we have 5 generations on our land, and my granddaughter, great-granddaughter, great-grandson lived there. I want them to enjoy the land like I did when I grew up. My mom and daddy bought that new in 1960. They paid $50 a month. I found their house payment book. And I know $50, you're going, oh, wow. But 1960, that was a lot of money. And equivalent to today, it's around $600 to $700 a month. They worked hard for this, and you are thinking about taking all that away, the beautiful land? I sat here one night in a meeting, and they talked about, Mr. Glines talked about building a picnic area with walking trails and a family park near Jonas Ridge. And in the next voice, he goes, and we're going to put a factory on Dozerville Road. That's destroying a place that's already beautiful. The woods are wonderful. I love in my bedroom when it rains to lift the window and hear the rain fall through the woods. That is so calming and relaxing. I don't want to hear factory whistles or traffic going by. I don't understand why 5 people can decide on the community, their well-being. I don't understand how you can do that. And I think it's a shame that people we trusted and elected to office to help take care of Burke County citizens, you've let greed take over. And you don't care about us any longer. I vote, let's put the mega site in your backyard, and let's see how you like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Madam Clerk.
Ann Chapman.
I'm Ann Chapman. I live near the Great Meadows mega site proposal. There's so many things about this proposal that just burn me up. This is not about jobs. There are jobs if people want to work and are able to work, and they will. I work 2.5 jobs. I worked 2.5 jobs since retiring from the state with 30 years. Why? Not because I really want to, but because of the cost of living. Cost of living is sky high. Like myself and many people that are trying to make it within their means, people are still living in poverty or almost near the edge of poverty because of the high cost of living and taxes. We are working to maintain and no pay raises for the state or county workers or retirees or teachers in years when given a meager 2% or 4%, then your insurance increases. So basically, we're just paying our bills, maintaining, not going anywhere. And it's not because I don't have a job. What else? There's so many things. It's just the government is spending this $36 million to try to boost our economy. But the simple solution would be to use this money to increase wages, lower the cost of living, reduce taxes, and help people that are trying to survive and stay out of poverty level. Government, the people we voted for, you are here to protect and serve us, listen and help solve problems, not create them. This will be a major setback. It will be there. That land and jobs for the future for families and children, it will be there, and other things will come and go. Why does it have to be manufacturing? You should be concerned about our water and our future and generations' resources. The travel and tourism that's here, that will plummet. There's no question about it. Nobody wants to come see and visit in a mega site area. I don't want to live near it myself. I live in the country for a reason. I didn't move there, grow up in Burke County and want to leave because there's a mega site here. You need to protect the eagles and the wildlife. Mr. Wood mentioned one time, he said the area was clean. Has there been anything done to show that there are not species there that need to be protected? We pay for that, our tax monies pay for the wildlife protections. They need to be looking into it. The Catawba Rivers, the Foothills People Conservancy, Lake James, yes, they have input and thankful for that, but you need to involve the community. We could come up with something. There is property over near Vulcan. There is Burke County 300 and some acres, and then you have the American Rescue Workers, Inc., 599 some acres. That's a total of 990 acres that could be used. Have you considered or thought about that area? It might be near your home, you probably don't want to, but you need to be looking at other things. You could do so much more with this property to make it suitable and complement the tourist and travel industry here. So thank you. Don't vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. Madam Clerk?
Dudley Green.
Hello, Commissioner. My name's Dudley Green. I'm from Burke County. I lived here for 63 years since my parents moved us up here from Charlotte when I was 10. And we left Charlotte to get away from the development down there. Where I was raised at was in West Charlotte. It is now inside the 285 Beltway in Charlotte, and it's all industrialized. My grandmother lived out in that area, and she used to work in a mill village. That was about 2 or 3 square blocks of little tiny houses in order to work there. What Mr. Woods is proposing with this land across the road is a mill village. You're gonna have little stores, you're gonna have gas stations, and you're gonna have apartments. Are you gonna put projects in there for low-income people also? That's probably what's coming down the road. And with Morganton supplying the water and sewer to this site, what's the end game here? For them to annex that whole area for their tax money also? That's doubling our taxes, or better. That's not helping our taxes. And there's not, I did some checking. On employees in western North Carolina, there are not but 650,000 available in the western section of North Carolina. I don't know where Mr. Woods is getting his figures from, but I don't feel like they're real. And they said no battery. There's 3 places he can put up on the border for a while ago were all battery companies. And it's awful vague. We could and should. There's nothing in stone here. It's all guesswork. That's the way this whole project's been. Nobody seems to have a grasp on what's really going on. You don't care about the people of this county. I mean, you're just playing games with people. There's a lot of skullduggery going on with this board and Mr. Woods. And that's the way I feel about it. There's a lot of hidden money going around here, and I don't know whose pocket it's going into. The people who are going to make the most money with this are the developers, the people that are building all these places and grading all this. Are any of those people from Burke County? Or are you going to hire these people from Burke County to do that work? They're already clearing that mega site on top of the hill. They're already in there timbering it, and it hadn't even been approved yet. Unless Mr. Phillips asked him to do that. Is there not tax money owed for that timber that's being harvested? Huh? That's what I want to know. Is he going to get away tax-free? Plus, he's going to make a mint from the sale of Mr. Phillips of the Great Meadows mega site. That's all it is money, money, money. And there was a job fair on the 12th of this month with all the major employers of this county looking for employees. The unemployment rate in this county right now is 4%. Where in the world are you going to find all these workers that you're going to need for a huge mega site? Have you bought into the Biden-Harris plan? Are you importing them across the southern border right now? That's what it sounds like to me. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Madam Clerk.
Susan Burley.
Good evening, Chairman Britton and members of the board. My name is Susan Burley. I'm here on behalf of the Burke County Chamber of Commerce. I have the pleasure of serving as the Government Relations Chair for that board. Today, the board of the Chamber of Commerce adopted a resolution in support of Great Meadows as a potential industrial site. I would like to read that resolution to you. Whereas the economic development of our region is vital for sustaining the prosperity and quality of life for our citizens And whereas there is significant need for suitable areas to accommodate new large-scale industrial development, which is crucial for continued economic growth and the attraction of new businesses to our community. And whereas the proposed site represents the largest area of land west of Interstate 77 in the state of North Carolina that is suitable for this type of industrial development. And whereas the existing inventory of buildings and development-ready spaces in Burke County has been depleted, limiting opportunities for growth and expansion. And whereas over the past 10 years, our community has successfully added over 2,000 jobs, demonstrating the strong potential for continued growth. And whereas the development of this site would create substantial opportunities for job creation, workforce development, and increased tax revenue, benefiting not only our local economy, but also the broader region. And whereas the county has proactively addressed potential environmental concerns related to this development by incorporating safeguards and concessions to ensure that environmental sustainability is maintained, including measures for environmental impact assessments, water management, and preservation of natural resources. And whereas these environmental considerations have been designed to comply with all applicable regulations, if not exceed mandatory regulations, and ensure that the development proceeds responsibly with minimal adverse effects on the local ecosystem. Now therefore be it resolved that the Burke County Chamber of Commerce strongly supports the development of the Great Meadows site as a key strategic location for economic growth, adopted this 17th day of September 2024 by the Burke County Chamber of Commerce. Signed, M. Kevin Ferris, Chairman of the Board. Signed, Tanya F. Stevenson, President and CEO. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Burley. Madam Clerk.
Joanna Kinch. I'm Joanna Kinch. I represent the Stop the Burke Lake James Megasite Group, a 501c3 nonprofit representing over 3,500 residents throughout Burke County and McDowell County that are opposing the Great Meadows Megasite for many of the reasons that we've spoken about for almost the past 9 months. We have a representative council that is Eklund and Blando, who have sent you several letters. The second one, 13-page letter that lists multiple violations in your proposal for the mega site. And we have not had any response from the demand letter with respect to the requests from Eklund and Blando. So I just want to point that out to everybody. The citizens are very much opposed to the rezoning of these parcels and the development of this massive industrial project so near to the pristine economic heart of Burke County. This letter spells out all of the inconsistencies and the impacts to natural resources, to the failures of noticing, safety risks of the mega site, goes on and on and on, refers to all of the endangered species that are around and surrounding that site, the spot rezoning, which is illegal. Could anybody put a map up of the whole entire mega site? Would you be able to put that up so that we can see other than the 3 parcels that you're talking about tonight? Because I feel that it's a little misleading because people think that it's just the 3 parcels when it's 1,300 acres that we're talking about that are significantly impacting. So that would be really helpful if everybody could see that.
I think we're going to pull it up now. Hold on, I'll get to the conditions now.
So
It's these parcels here, ma'am.
the 1,300 acres, not just the parcels that we're talking about rezoning. I wanted to show everybody.
I don't think we have a map. I'm sorry, I don't think we have a map of the full 1,300
It's
acres.
been in previous meetings.
I know, but this is not part of the.
Brian, do you have it?
I don't have that map with me. These are the only parcels considered for rezoning.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, this is just
a very insignificant, minute part of this project. So just so y'all know, it's 1,300 acres that we're talking about that are going to impact everybody. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to bring up is we're not opposed to building in industry, and we're not opposed to development, and we're not opposed to economic development. We're not opposed to jobs. What we're opposed to is an industrial waste manufacturing facility being developed in this pristine area of Lake James. There are so many other acres and potential and areas in Burke County that you could put this development in, or multiple developments. You don't need to destroy wildlife. You don't need to destroy beautiful forestry. I understand that it's private land, private industrial land, some of it, but much of it is residential. And although it is private, the buck stops with you guys. I mean, you do not have to approve industrial development. You can approve other types of development. Buy the land. We don't care if you purchase the land from Phillips. Buy it, donate it to the Conservancy, donate it, or build certain parcels out that are amenable to the community, to this area, to this pristine acreage. To destroy it, once you flip that vote and say that it's going to be okay, there's no turning back. It's going to be gone, and it's going to destroy beautiful, pristine areas. It could hurt the wildlife, of course, but also you're not worried about what's downriver from the Catawba River. You're only concerned with Lake James. I mean, I live at Lake James, but that's not my big concern. My concern is that groundwater is impacted all the way south, all the way down to Charlotte. I mean, that's significant. The people south that are downriver from this mega site. And on your list, Mr. Woods, you didn't even mention that it isn't going to be a lithium battery manufacturing site. That's the biggest concern of all. Why didn't you put that at the top of your list of unapproved processes or unapproved manufacturing? So we represent this group, and we are all opposed to it, and we hope that you vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Madam Clerk.
Dan Kinch.
Wow, that's kind of hard to follow. Thanks, Commissioners, for your time tonight. I appreciate it. I'm Danny Kinch. I'm a Burke County resident and a Burke County businessman. I get a preview, and I'm glad BDI put on this presentation because most of what they presented supports my view that this should be voted down, that this is such a bad idea. The preview I see every day when I drive to my business is the Burke County Business Park. It started 20 years ago as an economic development project. The county has put in tens of millions of dollars to develop, maintain, attract, and after 20 years, what do we have to show for it? Not one standing building, not one employee in 20 years. Now you're asking us to accept a project 15 times larger than that. So you're telling me in 20 years we couldn't attract a decent-sized manufacturing company into 83 acres that was fully developed, now with a beautiful water tower that says Nature's Playground on it? That's the preview that I see. 20 years from now, are we going to be looking at 1,300 acres of cement pad and destroyed fauna and flora for our kids, for our neighbors, for our grandkids? Is that what we're going to see in 20 years? That's what I see now. 20 years ago, that business park was started, and we have nothing to show for it. There's nobody in this room that will live long enough to see a return on investment of our tax dollars on that project. There's no way. And you know what's ironic is just down the freeway from that, if you're on the 40 freeway, you see a big billboard and it says, we need to pay our North Carolina teachers more money because they deserve it. I agree. I agree. We need to pay our Burke County Sheriff's Department more money. We need to pay our social workers. We need to raise our wages like one lady mentioned. What could have we done with those tens of millions of dollars over the last 20 years to improve everybody's life in Burke County? And now you're asking us to invest almost $100 million? Believe me, folks, it's not $30 million. By the time this price tag's done, it's going to be $100 million. And I don't care if it's taxpayer money or grants or local or county. It's still all our money. It's amazing. I had a guy stand up here and say, well, it's state money or it's grant money. Well, whose money is that? It's every one of ours. It's all our tax. I don't care if it comes from the state or wherever. I've been to mega sites. I have clients. I have business people that I work with at mega sites. In Columbia, for instance, they did it the right way. Have you ever been to the Columbia mega site? Okay, I have. I go there. I have industrial clients there. It's out in the middle of nowhere, next to a freeway. No views, no trees, no pristine waterways, no creeks, and they developed a beautiful mega site where a mega site is supposed to be. They didn't destroy beautiful scenery and recreational potential. Go down there. It's a great site. We need those kind of sites. This is the worst place in Burke County to put a mega site. This is the head of one of the most important river systems in the southeast, the Catawba River system. Now, if I was selfish, I wouldn't give a damn, because it's downstream from me, who cares? But I'm not that kind of person. This affects 2 million people who rely on our water, from Charlotte to South Carolina, all the way downstream. Now, we can talk about buffers all we want. We can hide this monstrosity from the roads, but that doesn't change what's going to be happening inside those buffers. And I don't care how much buffering you have and wastewater collection and so forth. We're taking a time bomb, a ticking time bomb, and sticking it in the worst area in Burke County we could. Sooner or later, we're going to get burnt. Sooner or later, we're going to have sick people, just like Carbon City plant. Sooner or later, we're going to have toxic land that can't be sold or done with anything else. We'll have another super fund like we do at Carbon City plant. One of the worst in the nation. Do we want that? Do we want to take that chance? Things happen. You've got to mitigate your possibilities. I looked, there was 22 million acres in Burke County. And you're telling me you can't find another 1,300 acres somewhere else out in, if you could pull that up, well, I'm not going to ask him to, but you saw the future land use map. The two industrial areas that were purple were right up by the lake and the watershed and the rivers. And then all the rest of the county was nice and pink. It was agricultural, it was residential. You know, we took the very worst spot in the county to try and do this. You know, commissioners, it's never too late to do the right thing. And I ask you to vote against this project and reconsider. There's plenty of places for economic development. I brought 2 companies to Burke County some 15 years ago. I didn't need a mega site. I rehabbed an old furniture warehouse for one of my businesses. So we can still bring in business, and we can do it the right way. We can do it creative. We can do it with compassion for the people that live next to these sites.
for the kids that ride their mountain bikes. You know, the kayakers that go down Muddy Creek.
Swimmers in Muddy Creek, my niece and nephew.
There you go. So, all I'm asking is for you to, I know it's tempting. You got $33 million and you don't want to give that up. There's lots of things you can do. Go back to the legislature, redesignate it, do other things. I know it's a hard decision, but it's never too late to make the right decision. And I ask you tonight to vote against this, that this will be your legacy. This will be your grandkids' legacy. When they go up to do these fun things and they go up on top of Linville Canyon up the gorge and they look out like I did with my Boy Scouts all the time. And what do we see? Beautiful green. Just, it gives me, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And now you saw the pictures. That's why I appreciate BDI. You saw the pictures of the mega sites. Great big sprawling white buildings, you know, as far as you can see. Boy, that's going to be a good viewscape from the Grand Canyon of the East. So thank you for your time. I know I went over. I'm passionate because I care about Burke County. That's why I moved here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Clerk.
Bill Petit.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bill Petit, and I'm going to get the booze and everything here because to address a couple things, I live adjacent to the site, directly across from Snow Hill Church. My parents moved there in 1955, and they paid $36 a month for a house payment. If that tells you anything. Yeah, so I'm not from Los Angeles or any other place out here. I'm from here. I have lived off and on that place since 1955. I spent some time in the Navy, which I ran nuclear power plants on submarines and talked to the Navy's nuke site in Windsor Locks, Connecticut, so I know what pollution is. Also, I've been across this country enough to know that there are places that would be desperate to have a site like this to develop. I'm a licensed general contractor in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and also an electrical contractor, and have worked in all those states. So I implore you to go ahead and vote for this. The trees and all that are in there right now are not the woods that I knew of as a kid. The trees in there right now are a pine plantation that was planted. I know all about this too because I'm the guy that led the fight against the garbage dump that was going to be put in there years ago. I like the restrictions that you've put on this already where we cannot have another garbage dump. I'm sure Waste Management, who we fought against, would still love to come in there and build a site because I understand that the site we use in Lenore right now and the one in Hickory are getting at the end of their life. And so once more, I implore you, vote for this.
Thank you, Mr. Petit. Madam Clerk.
Roxanne Fleetwood.
Hi, Roxanne Fleetwood, as Kay said, and I live very close to this location. I'd like to point out, can you hear me? Another serious issue with this project that has not been yet discussed. And that is what's going to happen to the homeowners in the neighborhood. Can you guys hear me? Okay. What will happen to the homeowners in the neighborhood when the taxable valuation of their land skyrockets due to nearby industrial and commercial real estate speculation? Land at the Great Meadows site is currently advertised on the BDI website for $50,000 per acre. This is thousands more than other nearby acreage. I'm no tax expert, but should the Great Meadows acreage sell for anything close to that value, nearby homeowners could see their taxable valuations and thus their taxes rise to that level. This is an economical, environmental impact. If the county is intent on going through with this disruptive project, why not provide protection for their citizens against this, such as an exemption for homesteaded properties to an increase in valuation above the existing base level? Did I say that clearly? Good. This might help protect homeowners from unreasonable tax bills, landing in their pockets and causing them more disruption. For instance, if a homesteaded property had a land valuation of $100,000 and that valuation rose to $200,000 due to recent sales, that homeowner, if an exemption, would receive an exemption for that additional $100,000 value, and their assessment would be based on the previous value. This type of thing has been done elsewhere with great success. And Burke County has the opportunity here to do the right thing and protect its citizens against the economic, environmental damage, as well as that impacting our land and water resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleetwood.
Jesse Fisher.
Good evening. My name's Jesse Fisher. I heard the gentleman say, I'm a lifelong citizen of Burke County. I've heard the gentleman say a little bit ago that he was 61. I'm 81. The project that you're trying to do now was first proposed in either 69 or 1970 by Jimmy Jackman to build this project up there before zoning was even here in this county. In 50 years, there's not been anybody that's come in, private or public, to try to do anything with that property. Reason why? There's no water, there's no sewer, there's no natural gas. To build the project you're talking about, you've got to have a larger sewer plant, a larger water plant to provide it. And you've got to put natural gas up there. Duke will put the power in because REA it normally lets the commercial stuff go to Duke and they take the housing. This project to me, is not feasible. You should give the money back to the state because they probably won't let you use it for another project. This project has been in the works probably for a couple of years, and it's just now coming to fruition. I think it needs to be stopped right now. And I've got one question I'd like to ask the audience. Everybody that's here that's against this project, stand up, please. Now you see what the population want. They don't want this thing. I think you heard one gentleman say that it took 20 years to put a building up here, and the building's not up. The concrete's poured, but the building's not up. And they're a year or more away before they get the 100 jobs that they're supposed to protect. It took 20 years. How long is it going to take to do 700 acres? It's going to take 50 years. And like he said, it's not going to cost 33 or 35 million. It's going to cost 100 million. Where's the rest of it going to come from? Just like it did on the other one up there, grants from the state, federal government, different places, because that's where the majority of that money came for on that park up there. City of Morgan controls what goes in here because they control the water and the sewer. When I went to work here, I made $1.15 an hour. You know who's responsible for the low wages in this county right now? The state, you people, and the City of Morgan. That's who's responsible for it. Because you have firemen, policemen that are leaving the county to go to another county because they make more money. I know at least 2 people, young people, that have left the county, gone to Asheville because they can make more money. Now they're driving back and forth for a while, but they'll probably move up there. because the money's that much better. And one of them was working for the city of Morganton. Now, why would he leave Morganton and go to Asheville if it wasn't for money and a better job? This is a joke. Stop it. That's all I've got to say. Stop it. If they won't let you use the money, you've got a golf course over here. It's in the floodplain. Use the money for that. But my Lord, look at all the other, and don't say you can't, because look at all the other buildings built over there in the floodplain. Lowe's Hardware started over there. I was here when Katrina came through, and the low place down there is all I ever saw flooded on 181. Buy the golf course. You can get enough dirt around here to raise it up above the floodplain, because that's what's been happening over there. Dana, the old Dana building is in the floodplain. Chateline's in the floodplain. OK Mart's in the floodplain. It's there. Why can't you build something over there? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Rox Fleetwood.
I think this one was, hi, I'm again Roxanne Fleetwood. This time I was just going to address some of the planning concerns. The last talk was about zoning.
Ms. Fleetwood, you already had your time.
Oh.
I'm going to ask you.
I misunderstood. I thought if there was a planning and a zoning component, that's okay. And I was addressing a separate one, but I misunderstood then.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
That's all that I have.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And at this time, I'll ask the commissioners if there's any questions or follow-up that you'd like to have for Mr. Wood or Mr. Glines.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple questions for Mr. Wood. Can you come forward, please, sir? Then I have one for Mr. Glines, too. So, Mr. Wood, you know, I heard some folks say they were concerned about cemeteries, native species. You know, were those studies already done?
Cultural resources and the archaeological study had both been complete, and there was nothing identified on those sites that would be disturbed, or that there was anything there that represented either of those, Commissioner.
And thank you. Can you clarify on the business park? Have there been tens of millions of dollars spent on that?
We went back and looked. The partners that are on that, it was $3.33 million is the amount of money that was borrowed at the time that the park was developed. It was bought in '05. I don't think the development started till '07. That is all of the local money that was put into the site. And the other money that I have had a participation, it was grant money, and I know where grant money comes from. I'm not stupid. But that money for the water tank and the other infrastructure had to be put in place at that time. To my knowledge, there's not tens of millions of dollars in that park, nor has there ever been.
And will you clarify also, there's been accusations that there's a lot of land out there that's developable. Can you address that? Because as far as I know, you discussed there's just 400 really developable acres that have the necessary infrastructure.
You can only go where the infrastructure is when you start. Yeah, there's a lot of other acreage in Burke County. The infrastructure only exists in the corridor between Highway 70 basically and I-40 up and along that corridor where the communities are. I will say, and you didn't directly ask, but what we're talking about here does not require an addition to the water facility or the sewage treatment facility. We're just talking about the excess capacity that already exists in those plants. There's a lot of other acreage around, but if you can't get the infrastructure to it for development, or you don't have the road access to it, then it's not developable for industrial uses.
Just for clarity too, there's been said that it's 1,300 acres. How much is actually, are we going to, with those few parcels, develop, and of that percentage, how many is developable? Because we're taking roughly 35% away from that.
You probably have 500 developable acres industrial in these parcels that we're discussing. There is another parcel that is in McDowell County, but that is outside of the scope of this discussion this evening. There's roughly 1,100 acres, 1,130 acres of it is in Burke County.
And, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind me, asking, probably this is more for Mr. Glines about spot zoning. So, just for clarity, is this a spot zoning case, and is the burden on Burke County government to demonstrate that this is not a spot zone?
No, I don't believe so. Spot zoning, I'm going to go back to the zoning map. Might be a minute here. Spot zoning is when you take one specific zoning type and you isolate it within an area that's fairly homogeneous with another zoning type, and you make a change in that one spot to say that that parcel is unique and different. It might relieve that one property owner from a burden or allow them to do things that other people in a similar way can't do that. But actually, if you look at this current zoning map that I have on the screen up here, you see a variety of zoning in place in this area. And I know we're talking about these 5 parcels, right, of land, but actually there's land on the south side of I-40. It's not part of this discussion, but it is zoned industrial and general business already as well. We also have a track up here just off the map. We weren't, trying to show this with this map, but off the map, that's a private piece of land that's already zoned industrial. Neighboring to that is general business and other, planned residential mixed use. I don't think we have a spot zoning worry here because we have a mix of zoning in this area according to this crossroads shown here.
Thank you, Mr. Glines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my questions. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. It's probably for Alan Glines. Does this rezoning conform to the land use plan? And what would be the remedy if it did not?
Well, we spent a fair bit of time in this presentation going over the comprehensive plan, the land use plan that we have in place. I believe that this proposal can be shown to conform to the land use plan in this case. And in fact, the future land use map for these parcels is zoned. The future use for most of it is zoned industrial. So these are the other 2 parcels, here and here. And the plan allows, the 160D allows for a commission to consider changing the zoning, even if the underlying land use plan doesn't show support for that, because other parts of the plan do. In fact, for this type of area, it supports the potential change to industrial use. And in this case, those 2 small corner parcels, they only total about 10 acres or 11 acres total of the total, but they support the project because they're providing buffer area within that conditional zoning application. So overall, the zoning chapter 160D anticipates that there might be cases where the board wants to support something that isn't in the underlying zoning, but it has a way to allow you to do that. And part of that is plan consistency and reasonableness. Is it reasonable? Are we considering it throughout the plan? Is it a reasonable request based on the area and many other factors that are identified as goals in our comp plan? So I believe we're okay on that.
One more question, if I could. So I know we're talking about property that's privately owned by a private citizen, that actually they're having a rezoning request brought on their behalf by BDI. What types of things should an elected board consider when dealing with a private property owner and whether or not to grant a rezoning?
Well, anybody that has private property, owns property, it is zoned. There's a zoning, in our case, in Burke County, there is zoning on that property already. And let's assume that they want to adjust that for some purpose. Well, you all study the reasonableness of that request. What's around it? What is it zoned today? And what can be done or what will be in place to mitigate any changes or challenges with using that land in the way desired. And so conditional zoning is one of those tools that allows the Board of Commissioners or City Council or whatever, who has this in their books, if you will, in the zoning toolbox, to customize conditions so that they can mitigate any potential impacts that might be present with the use coming in, or potential activities that would be requested at that site. Now, if somebody was just zoning industrial changes, we wouldn't have that many opportunities to really, it would be sort of like whatever is allowed in industrial could be permitted there. And in this case, we have the majority of the site is already zoned industrial, so whatever those rules are in place in the zoning code for industrial apply. And what you're really doing here is you're taking it down a notch. You're restricting those activities based on buffers and stream buffers and limiting the uses there and other conditions that will go forward with this land. And the same thing here. Is it reasonable? Is there reasonable reasons to support it? Are there mitigation in place that can make it so that it doesn't create impacts for the community surrounding it?
Okay, and then one more question I had written down based on some emails that I'd received and actually some of the public comment tonight. Are there properties that were supposed to receive notice of this rezoning that did not receive it?
We believe that everybody who was supposed to.
And we're in the immediate vicinity.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. Some people who were up here and said, hey, I didn't get a letter. Well, 160D provides how notice is done. It's done to abutting properties of the area being rezoned, the adjacent edge, not for people down the road, half a mile. That's why we do a Z sign. The Z sign is for folks who, to drive by and notice something's going on, please call our office, right? I do know that there's some folks who live nearby here. Right there, that's our house. Okay.
We're right in the middle of number 3 right there, not even receiving that. We're on Dyserville Road, we did not get a letter.
Okay. Well, we provided a list of addresses that received notice, and that was provided in the record for this meeting tonight. But anyone who abuts or is across the road from any of the tracts that are rezoned, they receive a notice based on the tax record. So in the case of the one family that lives there, the Carl and Doris Morrison, well, a letter was sent to the heirs of Carl and Doris Morrison.
I did not get the letter.
And she's the only heir.
They have to change the record at the tax office through whatever be required as an heir of property. So we mail that out, first class mail. It's how this is done.
And it went to the addresses listed on the tax map, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I think I have one. I think this will be for Alan. Alan, although this is a rezoning decision, there's been some people talking tonight about what they think the potential end users would be. Have we spoken to anybody? Have you spoken to anybody? Have we spoken to anybody about who an end user might be?
We do not have an end user selected on this. What the potential of it is heavy industrial. I don't know what those are. I will address, there's one that was put out and it was, the rumor was, it's a Chinese lithium-ion battery company. That is patently untrue. It has never been true. There has never been an offer or a discussion. If you study what's going on also in battery production, lithium-ion batteries are probably in a back generation, and what's coming in electric vehicles is not that. That is, as best I know, we have had no discussions and there is no end user certified on this property at this time. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir, it did.
Thank you.
Can I ask the county manager a question? Mr. County Manager, have we made every effort to respond to community questions that you or us have received so far?
I think the answer is yes. I don't know that it's 100%, but I do know that there have been homeowners associations meetings that we've attended. There's been civic group meetings. There's been one-on-one meetings, phone calls, emails. I'm not aware of anyone who's reached out that we haven't followed up with. We've done, I think, 2 YouTube videos. Vice Chairman Mulway and I did a fireside chat. We also did the community forum. I know that there's an outstanding Freedom of Information Act or Public Records request that was mentioned tonight. We received that last Thursday, and we're working diligently through that. We get about 5, just for reference, we get about 4 to 5 of those a week. Not necessarily for this project, just general public record requests. And we answer those and respond to 100% of them in the order that they're received. It's typically 2 to 3 week turnaround, especially for one of high volume. So we're working on that one, but I'm not aware. I think that we can say with a high level of confidence that we have followed up and been very intentional about that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other questions from the board? All right, gentlemen, I think I just want to make one comment before I call for a vote. And some information, some data that we received recently concerning poverty and economic data. And from my mind and my perspective, I hear all the comments that we've heard tonight, all the issues, the pros, the cons. And as I think about this matter, I think about and this data comes from June the 30th, 2024, from our economic analysis folks. In Burke County, 30.8% of our citizens are living below the poverty level. 30.8%. We got about 90,000 citizens. You can do a little math. That's probably 27,000 citizens in Burke County, representing, say, a family of 2 and a couple kids, trying to take care of their family, keep a roof over their head, and survive. And so I think anything that we can do, we need to give consideration for those 27,000 folks to bring their livelihood up to where they can have a living wage in our community. So that also, those folks can't be here tonight, most likely, to say their piece. And so I just say that as a matter of information for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
And I've never addressed the audience, but if you don't mind, I'm going to address you and the audience and everybody else too. But we've heard from a lot of smart people tonight. So I'm a lot smarter than I am. I have struggled with this. My wife will tell you, I've laid awake at night not knowing what to do. But I think we've got the best county manager around here and his staff. I think you guys over here is extremely smart. And you can give me, all these smart folks up here tonight can give me 25 reasons why we ought to proceed and do this, and I can't give you anywhere near that many. But I'm like old King Agrippa, almost thou persuadest me, Acts chapter 26, but I'm just not persuaded that this is the way the Burke County taxpayers ought to go, so I can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other questions, comments before I call for a vote? All right, gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-18 as it relates to ZMA 2024-09 for 5 parcels by changing the zoning to industrial conditional district 01 INDCD 01 and removing the scenic overlay for the 2 parcels as referred in Exhibit A, and approve Exhibit B site conditions along with Exhibit C site conditions map, including herein and incorporated herewith. The board finds that the request is consistent with the Burke Strategic Plan. Use plan is noted in the goals and strategies supporting manufacturing, expansion, and investment for properties along the I-40 corridor. The future land use map for all 5 properties shall be industrial. Furthermore, the board finds the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the parcels have been recognized by the state of North Carolina legislature as an important and unique opportunity for industrial development in western North Carolina, consistent with the goals of the state of North Carolina. Also strengthen the manufacturing economy at locations along the I-40 corridor with access to other needed infrastructure is identified as a goal throughout the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. Third, rezoning this land would help Burke County attract a large corporation to the area, which in turn would boost the local economy and support the manufacturing sector. Fourth, adoption of the conditional district standards is in place for the entire area of the rezoning request will ensure aesthetic, scenic, and environmental protections remain with the land.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Gentlemen, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by uplifting the hand. Those opposed? Madam Clerk, it's 4-1. This brings us to item number 2. This item comes from Community Development. It comes on behalf of the Planning Board recommendation for ZTA 2024-02 to adjust the future land use map 2 parcels. This will be presented by Alan Glines, our Planning Director. Mr. Glines.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Why don't we take a restroom?
We'll get you at the polls.
Let's finish this item, and I'm going to ask you to exit, please, if you're finished. Let's go ahead and finish this item, okay? We got several other items on the agenda tonight. We're going to finish this next public hearing, and then we'll take just a brief recess after that before we hear the rest of the agenda tonight. Okay, Alan?
Okay, Commissioners, thank you again. This request is a text amendment to adjust the future land use map. Now, we've discussed the future land use map a lot this evening. This is a copy of, my copy of the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. The last item in the packet is the map, the future land use map. So that's what we've been reviewing tonight. When the other item was being reviewed by the Planning Board and considered for, what to do, how to recommend to you all, they made a motion to approve that and recommend approval, but they also asked that you all consider changing the future land use designation for 2 properties, according to this, the future land use map. The 2 properties here, we've tried to highlight them, and they've got an arrow beside them. And it's the track here above the railroad tracks. It's north of US 70 West, and on both sides of Snow Hill Church Road. It's behind the site that we've just been considering, so it's that parcel and the one next to it. The 2 tracks, the largest one is 193 acres, and the other one that's right behind the Snow Hill Church is about 38 acres. Now, the current future land use designation for those 2 tracks, as you can see, is industrial. And what the Planning Board recommended is that you all consider adjusting that to be, as shown here, as proposed, which would be residential infill. Now, we've heard comments about steep slopes here and other challenges to using it for very large pad development, but they felt that that because of those challenges and just closer to the water, it makes sense for them to be in the residential infill category as a future land use. Now, I've got the current zoning map. I apologize for Ms. Kinch. I didn't realize I had that map in here. I forgot about it, but it's got a little more area to it. But this is the track here and here. These are the 2 that are being requested to be adjusted. This is not zoning, mind you. This is future land use map, so it's a text amendment, as you know. But the Planning Board felt that residential infill is a better match to the condition of the land with slopes and other reasons, and also it matches the underlying zoning, which is planned residential mixed use. So part of what the planning board can do is make recommendations up to the Board of Commissioners, and that's what they've done tonight with this text request. Thank you. I can answer any questions for you.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions on this item before I open the public hearing? So Alan, just quickly, tell us the difference between what we're doing here and an actual zoning request.
Okay, so this map lives in the document, which is a comp plan. And what the state requires under 160D is that we develop a future land use map for the direction that we think we're heading in for specific areas of the county, all over the county. And this is, let's see, here's the map coming up. There it is. So for the entire county, we have kind of a map of future probable land uses based on their location and their current zoning and kind of what's happening in that area. And so it's a text amendment because it's in the document. And it's not zoning like our zoning layer or zoning map. The zoning map is regulatory. The zoning map has rules and opportunities that are tied to each zone in our zoning map. We've been discussing that all night. But something in the strategic plan, the comp plan, is more of provides direction for decision-making to planning boards and boards of commission and staff and community members who own property. It talks about direction and opportunity throughout the county. So that's the difference. It's not zoning, it's part of a text document.
So it provides direction, but it does not change zoning as per se. So,
that's right.
So the property owner down the road could come back and ask for whatever.
That's right, ask for changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? All right, thank you, Alan. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on this item. Do we have anybody here to speak to this particular item?
Mr. Chairman, I had Roxanne Fleetwood signed up, but I think she left.
Okay. Anyone else speak to this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We would just like to reiterate that these two parcels are some of the ones that we were referring to earlier that contain wetlands, steep slopes, and other considerations that are not suitable for industrial. So we think that this is a good decision. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing no one else, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-19 as it relates to ZTA 2024-02, a request to amend the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan to adjust two parcels in the future land use map, which is a component of the plan at 0 US 70 West and 0 Snow Hill Church Road, Morganton, and corresponding to pins 175-255-7434 and 175-27-41972 from industrial to residential infill. The board finds the text amendment to be consistent with the intent of the Blueprint Burke Land Use Plan because the parcels are not suitable for industrial development. The land use map shall be adjusted to residential infill. Furthermore, the board finds that the planning board recommendation is reasonable and in the public interest because the subject property has site challenges, including steep slopes and sensitive natural habitats that make industrial development incompatible. The amendment to residential infill for the parcels is compatible with the residential character of the surrounding area.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Gentlemen, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 5-0. All right, well, let me thank you for your endurance thus far. We do have a number of other items on the agenda, particularly several decision items, but at 2.5 hours, we are going to take about a 5-minute recess, and so we'll take that recess at this time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call the meeting back to order. This will bring us to item number 8, informal public comments tonight. Madam Clerk, we have anybody for informal public comments?
Mr. Chairman, we have a few folks that might still be here. Is Locke Hoffman, Carla Kincaid?
Turn your microphone on, Carla, please.
There
you go.
Okay, now, it's on. Okay, well, you all know, first of all, let's start with something, good news. National Voters Day. I don't think anybody's mentioned that. It's National Voters Day today, a registration day. We need to be registered voters, and I hope everybody's registered somebody today. I know I've been busy with absentee ballots as well as registration ballots today and last week. In addition to that, of course, I always come in reference to unity in the community as well. And I did want to mention last month, and I wasn't here, August the 23rd was United Nations International Day for the remembrance of the slave trade and the abolitionists. We always have international days for United Nations. And I just want to mention about the summertime I had. I had a good summertime for vacation. Had visitors in the Albuquerque County area, which were mostly family members or friends, classmates. Others came to reunions, funerals, or other celebrations. The Burke County symbols of Confederacy will remain to be a shameful embarrassment. And I don't know, I heard everyone talking up here this evening about reasons that people are leaving and reasons we can't keep people to come, get people to come here. I know it has an effect. 2 flags, we've already mentioned this flag on the end and the beginning. It's got to have some kind of impact on our county as far as people moving out and people moving in. I know that the removal of the Confederate symbols is not going to solve most of the severe, tangible challenges facing our communities, facing our nation, including discrimination, criminal justice system, the economic system, employment, education, housing, health care, other barriers to full and equal protection under the law, and first-class citizenship either. But it would put an end to a symbol that sponsors reverence and adherence to the values that support slavery, domestic terrorism, and hatred which continues to divide our country, and it's been too long. And we've been on this soap derby for years, a soapbox for years as African Americans. All of you guys know that. We need unity. We don't want anything dividing our county. And we definitely want to attract people to our county. And I think that has an effect on attracting businesses too, as well as people going and coming, and our young people. The mindset has changed, guys. It's getting so, it's just not a Republican Democrat thing now. We've got kids now that are in the middle of the road. We have mixed race kids, which is in probably all our families. And the kids, the future is not going to stand for it. It might not happen while I'm here, but the kids will not stand for it. And I want to say that I spoke up. Kids are not going to be mad at me. I spoke up against this. It's just a sore, it's an eyesore, and just that, that's basically all I've got to say. And I always end with this note: when we know better, we do better. And I just wanted to leave you with that note, that we still need to get on the soapbox when it comes to what is really another thing that affects our community. It affects our community, businesses as well as visitors and family members coming in and out, and our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Madam Clerk.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, I'll close the public comment period, and we'll move to item number 9. Consent agenda. Mr. Manager, would you review that for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several items for consideration, all of which you heard at your pre-agenda meeting in detail. Item number 1 is a resolution in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Item number 2 is a proclamation in support of National Recovery Month, 2024. Item 3 for considerations from our clerk, and that's removal of a Board of Health advisory member who has experienced employment change and resigned as a outcome of that. Item 4, we have several budget amendments to consider, beginning with item 4. It's a request to budget $25,000. That was a Homeland Security grant that'll flow through our Emergency Management Department for a swift water exercise. Item number 5, which is a budget amendment number 3, is a request to budget $107,000. That is from the State Department of Public Safety, and that'll provide for, as a component of our continuity of operations plan, to provide a generator switch at the Foothills Higher Education Center for continuity of power. Item number 6, budget amendment number 4, is request to budget $10,000 for the America 250 grant that's been received. And as a reminder, that'll be managed by the Historic Foundation. Item number 7, budget amendment number 5, is a request to budget 4 different COVID bridge grants in the Public Health Department, $169,249. Item 8 is budget amendment number 6, a request to budget $252,605 in grant dollars that will be used for medicated assisted treatment in our jail. Item number 9, budget amendment number 7, is a request for directed SCIF General Assembly grant, $2,714 to be used in the Register of Deeds Department to promote automation of vital records. Item 10 is a request to extend our Harbert grant cost centers, which is a coordinator as well as recovery court, for a period of 30 days. The anticipated cost there is $12,000. Item 11 for consideration is a proclamation in support of Fire Prevention Week, which is October 6th through the 12th. Item 12 is a proclamation for consideration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which was October, or it's coming up in October 2024. Final 2 items are both from our tax department. Your monthly collection report is item 13. Happy to report at 56.5%. And finally, for consideration is your monthly August 2024 release and refund report from the tax department. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on these items? Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0. Brings us to item number 10, items for decision tonight. First item comes from the Animal Services Foundation. Resolution supporting a capital fundraising campaign for the new animal shelter and a naming policy. This will be presented by the foundation president, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a request to approve resolution number 2024-16 and approve a naming policy included in your agenda packet. The resolution supports the Animal Services Foundation's efforts to raise capital funds for a new animal shelter and encourages citizens and businesses that love animals to participate in the capital campaign. I have a few slides for you. Key points about the naming policy include that the commissioners will approve all the names, and the naming rights are for a significant amount of time, but are not in perpetuity. As you've mentioned, I am the current president of the Animal Services Foundation. We are an 11-member board. We have 9 voting members and 2 non-voting members. There were some members here tonight, but I believe they have departed. And it is maybe worth mentioning that Sandy Holman, who many of you all know, is our treasurer. We are an all-volunteer board, which means we have no salaries, and we were created in 2021. We do have a Facebook page and a website, so we invite you to follow us on social media. Our mission is to support, in summary, the Burke County Animal Shelter, whether through sheltering, adoption, transport, spay and neuter, and community outreach. We are As I mentioned, the capital campaign is for the new animal shelter that's currently out for bids, along with a new EMS headquarter facility. Members of this board asked the foundation a while back to raise a significant amount of private funds, and this campaign aims to do that by selling naming rights. The money raised in this campaign will be used to buy down the construction cost or cover equipment and furnishing costs, which frees up capital dollars for other projects. Why donate? This is a great way to honor or memorialize friends, spouses, family, rescue advocates, and beloved pets. It's an opportunity to be included and participate in an event that will be the largest advancement of animal welfare in Burke County's history. And other reasons include, if you're a business, it's good advertising. If you need a tax write-off, we are a nonprofit organization, so it's tax deductible. It's legacy, it's leaving Burke County better than you found it. But the most important reason is that you love animals and you want to make a difference. On the area and pricing slide, we think we have something to fit all budgets. They range from $150 engraved brick to $500,000. We're still working on the details, but there will be significant presence on the property for major contributors. If approved tonight, okay. If this is approved tonight, we would hope to kick off our campaign in mid-October. And there are, we have two ways for folks to participate in the campaign. We have on our website, we have a PayPal account, and you can, our website is BurkeCountyAnimalServicesFoundation.com. You would click the donate button, which is in the upper right-hand corner, enter the amount, click add, cover the PayPal's processing fee. You can pay by PayPal or credit card, and then once you complete that, you need to include in the notes section the name that you want. You know, like for me, it might be Bailey, our dog Bailey, do a memorial gift in his honor. So you can do PayPal or credit card on our website, or if you are anti-technology, you can do it the old-fashioned way and send us a note and a check in the mail to Post Office Box 52 here in Morganton, and we would actually make that payable to the ASFI. Again, in closing, the commissioners have the final say on the names, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions for Kay on this item? Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adopt resolution, oh, sorry, wrong one. No, that's right. I checked it off before I got to it, and it just confused me a little bit. I make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-16 as presented, and the naming policy as presented. Vote by show of hands. That's your line. Sorry, I'm trying to do some research here on it.
All right, with all that, all those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much.
Second item, also coming from our clerk, reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to make some appointments or reappointments to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. September 30th is the term expiration date for the following seats on the Board of Adjustment. Seat number 2, representing the East, and seat number 7 is an alternate at large. Mr. Tommy Craig occupies seat number 2 and desires reappointment. Mr. Mario Cichetti occupies seat number 7, but is not seeking reappointment. Also, seat number 4, representing the West, is vacant.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Try to keep this somewhat organized, gentlemen. First, I'd like to entertain a motion to remove Mr. Shetty's name from the roster and thank him for his service.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0. Okay, now let's take seat number 2, please. And we have Mr. Tommy Craig or Rick McClure, and I believe I recall Mr. McLeod is serving there now, wishes to be reappointed. Was that correct?
Mr. Craig is the current member, but Mr. McClure has served on the Board of Adjustment and Planning Board in years past.
Okay, so Mr. Craig is the current member. Mr. McClure is also eligible for that seat. And gentlemen, I'll just remind you that we have seat number 7 that will be coming up also, and then seat number 4. So if we do this right, I think things work out, but.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reappoint Tommy Craig to seat number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Carswell. Those in favor, or any other nominations first? Seeing no other nominations, close nominations. Those in favor of Mr. Craig for seat number 2, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you. All right, this brings us to seat number 4.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to appoint Gregory Smith to seat number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Carswell. And no others eligible for that seat. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. This brings us to seat number 7.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to appoint Rick McClure to seat number 7.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carswell. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand, since there's no other nominations about it. So 5-0. All right. You fellas handled that very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Let's bring us to item number 3 of decisions. This comes from County Manager from Community Development. This is a memorandum of understanding for partnership with Hickory to construct a new airplane hangar at the Hickory Regional Airport. And of course, remind you guys, we've been working with Hickory for a number of years and have been able to build a hangar or 2 and put some very expensive aircraft in those hangars. And that brings some a nice tax revenue into our county. So, Mr. Manager, tell us all about it.
Yes, sir. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, this is a continued partnership with the city of Hickory, who operates the day-to-day process of the land, or the airport that's located in Burke County. The aircraft that is located there is personal property in Burke County and taxed as personal property to our tax base, which helps substantially. When you all started this innovative economic development strategy, the personal tax base at Hickory Airport was about $37 million. And over a fairly short period of time, just a couple of years, that's grown to more than $110 million. And that is a product of building these hangars. And the way that the relationship has worked is that the city provides the startup capital to build the building. Once the infrastructure, once the aircraft is placed in the building, Burke County collects all the property tax and remits up to 50% of that back of what we call net new investment, so the growth off of the base year, to help offset the startup capital that is input by the city. It's worked so well, we've done it numerous times, and we have plans of continuing that, which is the purpose of the modification to the MOU. This is a long-standing contract, a memorandum of understanding, if you will, with the city. But the way it's written, we reestablish a new baseline to measure net new investment every time we build a new hangar, which is becoming somewhat administratively cumbersome. So we would like to modify the agreement to have a fixed baseline at a tick over $98 million, and everyone after that in perpetuity just measures off of that, is how the net new investment would go. The county attorney is finalizing some details, so what we're seeking tonight is conceptual approval, subject to finalization from the county attorney and the county manager's office. The city of Hickory have already approved their changes, which are similar, and they're very supportive of what we're recommending.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any questions to Brian on this item?
Just one quick question. As we move forward and things are starting to move and grow out at Foothills, is this something that could be adopted or adapted to that circumstance as well?
Yeah, I think that clearly the applicability to personal property aircraft growing our tax base is directly applicable. Who our partner would be, whether that's Caldwell County or the city of Lenore or the city of Morganton, I suppose is the details we would have to work out. But the idea of a joint partnership to put infrastructure in place that then attracts tax base and economic development is absolutely a replicable model that I think we should pursue.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2024 Memorandum of Understanding between Burke County and the City of Hickory for airport hangar construction, and hereby direct the County Commission Chairman to execute the agreement on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0. Item number 4 comes from the County Manager's Office, Public Safety Radio Purchase and Budget Amendment. This will be presented tonight by Hugh Sando, Budget Strategy Performance Analysis. And Hugh, congratulations for being able to hang out this entire time.
Well, thank you. And I'm joined by Mike Willis tonight. I will keep this brief in the interest of everybody's time. I'm just here today to give a quick update on our public safety radio purchase that we've been talking about for quite some time. Really, this project falls under 2 areas of your strategic plan. The first one being fiscal sustainability, and the second one being public safety and well-being. As you can imagine, it's critically important for our public safety team to have access to up-to-date technology to be able to communicate in the field. Before I talk specifically about public safety radios, I'd like to remind you all that we do have a public safety leadership team, of which Mike is here tonight, and he's a core member of. We meet approximately every 6 weeks to talk about public safety strategy, talk about projects that we're working on across departments, and that team really meets to look at a variety of issues, both short-term, medium, and long-term. That's where we started talking through this challenge of our public safety radio fleet. That committee is comprised of a number of members, representing from the Sheriff's Office to Finance, Budget and Strategy Team, Emergency Management, Fire Marshal, 911, and our EMS department. I did bring Mike here today to talk a little bit about why we're talking about replacing public safety radios and kind of some of the features and aspects of that are going to be really critical moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Our radio cache, a lot of it was purchased back in 2007. We got our first Viper radios in the county through the state. They allocated through some Homeland Security money, 20 radios per county. Those were initially given to EMS because that was the county agency that could put those in service and use them together. Rather than have to work off 2 different systems. So they were the ones implemented first. Over the past few years, due to some budget issues, we've not been able to maintain and keep up radios. The lifespan on them things is anywhere from 7 to 10 years. If you're lucky to get 10 years out of them, reason being, it's not a transistor type radio like we used to use. It's literally a small computer in your hand. And just like our laptops and so forth, they, over time, 5-6 years, they're pretty much, you can't, they just outdate themselves. So just to give you a little example, when we started using Viper in North Carolina, it started as a 64,000 user system. Within 5 years, it went to 128,000 user system. We're having to double that again because we're surpassing the 128,000 users. So they've had to do some things in the software to make it to where we can have more people use it. Therefore, the radios we have just will not keep up with that standard. So we have to replace some. Just today, EMS had another one break. Those poor folks are in dire need of radios. They're completely out. We don't have spares to give them, and many times the trucks are using a telephone rather than a radio, and we've got to get those changed and get us up to speed. Moving forward, hope I'm not taking his thunder, but moving forward, the group has come up with a replacement plan that we think over time it won't be such a big hit at once, that we can gradually keep stuff inventoried and rotated out to where we won't run into this situation again.
Just to give you a little bit of data and overview to what Mike said, in Burke County on our Viper network, there's approximately 1,900 radios in the system. Of those, approximately 470 are county-owned and operated, with the remaining being owned and operated by municipalities and the volunteer fire departments. I've put a red box. This chart here on the right is the current inventory of Burke County radios with how many we have and the year that they were released. Just kind of for some context, the ones down there, the 20 that you see in a red box, those are ones that you can currently buy parts and have support for. So any of the ones above that line, which represents over 400 of them, once they break, there's really no repair or use for them, ability to fix them. I've also broken down on the right-hand side. You can kind of see how those radios are broken down by department, with the sheriff's office having most of the radios, but also a significant portion going to EMS, fire marshal, and 911. Part of the strategy of this bulk purchase, as he mentioned, is an initial influx of a large quantity of radios so that we can really have a sustainable fleet system. Just like we can predict the lifespan of a car, we can predict the lifespan of a radio and have a managed spend every year so that we can predict and control that cost. But the other piece of this bulk purchase is really having some substantial funding enhancement through a variety of strategies. The first one, we've negotiated a technology credit with Motorola of $500,000, which will really is a result of some unfulfilled contractual obligations that they had with us on a prior project. We've also worked with the North Carolina legislature. Our county managers worked very hard on that to get some directed funding to our local fire departments to the tune of $4 million. Many of the fire departments that are partnering with us will be using that funding to be able to participate in this bulk purchase. We've received a grant from the North Carolina 911 Fund, and again, as a result of this bulk purchase strategy, we were able to negotiate cost savings of almost $700,000 because of the scope and size of this initial purchase to bring our fleet back into the modern day. I've put a map up here of the organizations that we're partnering with or proposing to partner with, which include the City of Morganton, Lake James, Chesterfield, Lovelady, and Icard fire departments. Mike did work with all of the volunteer fire departments in the county to give them an opportunity to participate in the savings that we're going to receive, and these are the ones that elected to go partner with us in the purchase. So every fire department had an opportunity to participate. Just kind of a summary of the 280-line quote invoice that we have is broken down here. You can see there kind of all of the organizations, the list price, and then the negotiated savings that we'll be receiving. This bulk purchase strategy is going to save Burke County citizens approximately $1.2 million, again, through those cost reduction strategies and this bulk purchase. So we really feel like this is a significant enhancement to not just Burke County's radio fleet, but also the radio fleets of these volunteer fire departments, many of which who have limited resources. In addition to a budget amendment that I'm going to talk about shortly, we also have for your consideration some partner agreements with the municipalities and volunteer fire departments that allow us to do a few things. Firstly, to purchase and negotiate on their behalf with Motorola for the purchase of these radios, to provide an invoicing mechanism. Once we order and receive the radios, we'll be able to invoice them for their portion of the total contract price. Ensure the correct model and features are ordered for each of the volunteer fire departments according to their specs and their needs. And then lastly, it's going to enhance the radio management system that we have for our information technology team. You may be aware our IT team partners really as for free with many of these fire departments to manage their radios, to help them as there's new features or software. These volunteer fire departments will bring the radios to our IT team to manage them and to add and to update and perform necessary maintenance. And so buying them through this bulk purchase will allow us to do that in a much more streamlined way. You have for your consideration budget amendment number 1 on the year. I have it broken down here, but really the summary of this budget amendment does 2 things. Firstly, it transfers funding from our capital fund that was in our capital improvement plan. Really, we started that last year, setting some money aside for this purchase, so it recognizes that transfer, but it also recognizes all of the external revenue that we're going to be receiving in the form of the Motorola credit, in the form of the 911 grant, and in the form of the contributions from municipalities and other fire departments. Just kind of a summary of that, the net Burke County expense for this project is about $740,000. You can see there we're purchasing 132 radios, which represents just a little bit over a third of our entire radio fleet, which really, again, sets us up for a managed incremental replacement strategy. The average list price of the radios, if you were just to go and buy one off the street, would be about $12,000, and the price that we've negotiated down to, again, with all these other funding strategies, is about $5,600. So it's really a significant cost savings for Burke County and for these volunteer fire departments. So the action, should you choose to approve it, would be to approve that budget amendment and to approve the memorandum of understanding between Burke County and the partnering organizations. Mike and I are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions for Mike or Hugh regarding the radio request?
Hugh, is this all walkie-talkies or vehicle radios?
It's a mixture. It's about half and half.
Half and half. Is technology, Michael, advanced enough now that they work in our dead areas?
Yes, as of last week, the Highway Patrol finished out the tower system. So all the appropriated towers are out now and up and working. So it's, we're still gonna hit that 95% coverage statewide, simply because of terrain. There's absolutely no way to hit 100%, but it's as good now as it's ever been. A lot of people ask about why is IT handling radios. Well, I program them too, and I can tell you, if when you start from scratch, you'll have almost a week in building the program for the radio, because there's a little over 3,500 programmable fields in each template that you have to build. So it's very technology challenging to have to do that, and it's just the basic radio programmer. It's not like it used to be. You used to have a receive frequency, a transmit frequency, and a PL, and the thing worked. Not that way anymore. So
there'll be a replacement program for vehicles and for walkie-talkies?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, gentlemen, you've heard the information. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve budget amendment number 1 and authorize the county manager on behalf of the board to execute the memorandum of understanding regarding radio purchases between Burke County, the city of Morganton, and the following fire departments: Chesterfield, Iker, Lake James, and Lovelady.
Thank you, Mr. Carswell. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 11, reports and comments. Item 1 on this comes from the county manager, presentation of the year-end report. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each of you at your respective posts here have a copy of the printed end-of-the-year report. As you're all aware, our fiscal year concluded June 30th, so we're approaching that 90th day. We're still working through our audit and physically closing out the year formally, and but it's important to our team to have a high level of communication and to highlight some of the remarkable deliverables and accomplishments that the team has worked on over the last 12 months that all align around the Board of Commissioners strategic plan. You all know this plan is a fluid document that you formally update once a year, but that we are eagerly pursuing, that we put budgeted resources behind during the budget process each year, and I think we've had significant movement. We talk a lot about our culture, and that's probably been the single most important area of focus in year 2 for me here in Burke County. When we talk about what does high performance looks like, I think that's what we just heard. We literally have, Mike mentioned that our EMS department was down radios. We've been borrowing radios this week from outside agencies. We have folks that are operating with life-saving equipment that's simply failing, and we've put together a plan that's going to make sure that that is dealt with largely over the next 5 to 10 years. We saved $1.2 million in doing it and negotiated some pretty favorable conditions for Burke County citizens. And I think that is the emphasis behind trying to pursue high performance in everything that we do. And I think that's a culture. We say a lot, if what we do matters, then doing it well matters. We do that both through a combination of strategy, which is what we do, the budget amendment, and culture, which is our behaviors and why we do those things. There's always going to be more needs than there are resources. So we've adopted at the board's guidance and following your leadership this methodology of really screening, starting with what's the most important goals and doing resource allocation based on what delivers the highest output as aligned to your strategic plan. And then we operate and update all throughout the year, and so we're kind of in this September timeframe to point out some things. So I'll quickly run through the focus areas one by one. I'll start first with fiscal stewardship. I know something that's been maybe the top priority of this board is being good fiscal stewards and fiduciaries of public resources. So I'll touch on that briefly. We concluded last year in our general fund with about $108 million of general fund revenue. That's a tick higher than you would see in this report last year. And remember that the legislation that brought all of Article 39 and 40 sales tax into the general fund skews that number just a shot. But total revenue is about $108 million. We concluded the year at a tick over 98.6% tax from a tax collection rate. This was the first year that we were able to move from 68.5 cents to 56 cents. So again, we've talked a lot about that 20% tax rate reduction that positioned us at 28 in the state for the lowest tax rate. We operated all year without moving our tax burden on a per capita basis. In 2023, we were 83rd in the state. In 2024, post-reval, we remained at 83rd in the state. That per capita levy went from $599 to $622 per capita, which is about $1.50 per month. Here are our top 10 taxpayers as we close out the fiscal year. I think this is important to two things that I would point out. One, you have two taxpayers that have more than $100 million value. That's a good measurement for how you've done in the world of economic development. As we talked about earlier tonight, our tax base is about $10.6 billion. So you take $10.6 billion multiplied by a 56-cent tax rate, multiplied by a 98.5% collection rate, and that's where you come up with our tax revenue. Compare that to Catawba County, who has a $30 billion tax rate, or to Lincoln and Cleveland, who are at 14 and 15. We have some catching up to do. Of these top 10, they represent almost 4 cents on the tax rate. So if these top 10 weren't here, we would have significant gains that we would have to make up. That top 10 also makes up about 6.5% of your total value. So I hope this is a good optic to show when you're able to generate, some larger tax base like what we've done at the airport. That helps to provide the necessary resources. Sales tax last year grew at about 2%. That provided about $463,000 additional dollars when compared to the prior year. Cumulatively across all three articles that are unrestricted, we had about $23.1 million. A couple things I'd point out. You see this softening. So Article 39, that's point of sale. That means that if you shop in Burke County, that money comes back to Burke County. You can see this massive vertical increase over the last 4 years, and really this flattening for 23-24. Same for Articles 40 and 42. These are collected statewide and then redistributed to all 100 counties based on a proportionate share of population. So Burke County is 90,000 of the roughly 10.5 million folks in North Carolina, so we get that percentage. And again, not quite the same softening, but not the same vertical growth that we've seen in previous years. And that's a big deal because a lot of counties and cities across North Carolina have balanced their budget on anticipated sales tax growth over the last couple of years, which may not be sustainable. And here in Burke County, we haven't done that. We're also seeing a slight slowing of the development market. This is looking at single-family home permits as well as building and zoning permits. Both consistent, but slightly lower than the prior year, which led to, as you would expect here in the blue bar, revenues that were similar, roughly $100,000 in planning and zoning fees, and a tick over $500,000 in building inspection fees. One thing that I'm very proud of, and I want to make sure that we point out, we have put together a very intentional cash investment team. Cash investment in local government is very strategic. As I mentioned earlier, our tax collection report, this is September, and we've already collected 56% of our property tax revenue for the year. So there's this heavy influx in the beginning of the year for escrows and other folks trying to take advantage of early pay discounts. So you're very you have a robust amount of cash early in the year, and that kind of tends to tail off as you get further in the fiscal year, but your expenditures largely are flat. So being strategic in management cash flow, trying to run a lean operation, build those investment ladders in a way that generates the most return is something that is very, very fruitful to Burke County. I want to brag on our finance team for implementing the strategy and really being strategic in how we manage cash flow. But if you look, 2 years ago, Burke County reported $63,000 in investment income, $63,000. This year we closed at $2.5 million. That's 2.5 cents on the tax rate. That's significant return, significant return. We've also been very intentional about grant management. Currently, we have 30 grants that are in process. That equates to about $9.5 million. We want to do better. We have a grant writer who is, again, housed in the finance office who is actively pursuing grants. We've put systems in place that require her to meet with department heads on a quarterly basis. So to be in this constant search for what's out there. We've also in 23-24 had some significant and meaningful movement in your capital program. You've opened both Jonas Ridge and East Burke collection sites. We are making meaningful movement. The bids for EMS and animal services come back in a week from today, I believe. And then you'll have the opportunity to consider that contracting process. We've had a space analysis as well as strategy development has began for public health and social services. Our courthouse project has began. Canal Bridge and Adult Protective Services, they moved in last Friday. So a lot of movement during the last 12 months in your capital plan. We've also continued to see with the in-house relocation of EMS billing, we've continued to see a tick up in EMS billing. Now remember, they only came in house as of February 2024, so February through June of this fiscal year, we were doing our own billing and collecting, but we have seen that average revenue per bill tick up. We closed last year to tick over $5.1 million, and then a couple trends that we're continuing to notice is the percentage of our call volume that our interfacility transports are going up. So Mr. Robinson and I, our new EMS director, have already begun conversations about how do we continue to grow that? How do we have a more involved role in interfacility transports as that continues to be really the new model of hospitalization, as our ER is now 3 times as big, as the trauma center designation is coming. We expect all of those things to continue to grow and tick up. We closed the year last year, 23-24, adding about $1.4 million to general fund. And we have strategically managed this unassigned fund balance. This is the equity that isn't reserved or restricted by any type of funding source or any type of stabilization law. Our peer group's about 22.5%. We've been very strategic in utilizing those resources. So even though we've added about $1.4 million to fund balance, the base has grown. And we've been, again, I think very strategic in right-sizing that over time. As a reminder, your policy requires you to stay above 25%, which is industry best practice according to Moody's, S&P, and those bond rating agencies. One big component of your financial stewardship has been your debt administration. Moving into next year, only about $4.9 million of debt is going to be due. In 2 years, both Drawn and Patton are no longer going to be part of your portfolio, so that's that big drop here. And that'll move you to this 100% 10-year payout percentage. And for perspective, right now about 4.4% of our budget goes to debt. Really anything lower than 8 is going to be an industry, top of the line in the industry.
Can you back up that then?
Yes, sir. You get your own pointer. Because after, well, the debt service annually is consistent.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this is with Patton and Drawn. Once they're paid off, you'll have Mountain View and, well, Mountain View and the jail. And not shown here is you have a little bit of water sewer debt too, but it's tiny. So, yes, sir. I'm impressed you have your own pointer. That's well done. You have your own laser pointer. I'm impressed. This is our latest issue or comment from Moody's, and just some of the comments that they pointed out. From a management perspective and what the Board of Commissioners controls, they've given very strong comments. If you notice at the bottom, the things that are holding us back are all macroeconomic. So tax-based, median income, poverty levels, those are the things that those agencies are saying that we, to receive a higher bond rating agency, we have to focus on. We closed the year at about $100.7 million of expenditures. You can see the functional allocation here. Human Services, Public Safety, and Education continue to be our top 3 compartments. One thing that I would like to point out, Human Services in your last 2 budgets has ticked down from 28 to 26, and Education has ticked up from 21 to 23. So the roughly 25% increase that this board's put into public education for teacher supplements and classroom sizes is now being reflected in a real material way as your budget allocation continues to align with your strategic plan. You can see the budget management over time here. So what we don't want to see is high volatility. We want to see managed spend plans that, again, tie to priorities, and you can see fairly steady there. 2 big parts of that, again, 26% of your total general fund comes from public health and social services. Here we've just shown Medicaid eligibility in the bar, which drives a lot of the spend in social services and public health. And you all know that much of these are both essentially state functions that are administered at a local level, driven by eligibility. So here in Burke County, we spent about $21 million in social services. Roughly 38% of that was from local money, which when you compare that to some of our peers, is in line. On the public health side, we spent about $2.4 million, with almost 60% coming from local money. And again, what you can see there is that's a tad high when we compare to our peer groups. And we know that has to do with billing and reimbursement, and want to do a better job there. One of the things that we've made a priority is what I would call intelligent commissioning. You know, the don't leave the light on, and try to lower our energy consumption. That can be done through managed thermostats. That can be done through LED light transitions. But I'm very proud of our team. This is an initiative that we've rolled out and been able to reduce our utility consumption by more than $100,000 since last year, and really favorable when compared to other counties that have what we consider reasonable and comparable square footage to manage. Transitioning, again, this idea of fiscal stewardship to our enterprise funds. This is, as you all know, these funds are legislatively created to be supported through user fees and ran like a business, meaning the more that you consume, the more that you pay. And historically, over time, we've operated in this deficit. Part of that is that we're a small fund that doesn't have a tremendous amount of customers. But regardless, that has required support from the county's general fund. Last year, as a matter of fact, closing out at about almost $750,000 loss in 22-23. But over the last 2 years, I'm very proud to report that we've been able to correct that. A big part of that is sewer payments that we've been making to the city of Hickory. I think that we have began a monthly reconciliation process that maybe has put a little bit more integrity in that billing process. And we closed the year at roughly $430,000 of surplus in that fund. Similar story with solid waste. We had this pattern of deficits last year, tick out $1 million, or 22, excuse me. But over the last 2 budgets, began to rebound. A lot of things that factor into that: reduction of overtime, making sure that we're quantifying materials in the right bucket and charging the right tipping fees. And I expect, as you all know, this going into 24-25, now that we're doing transport in-house, as well as a couple other policy changes, I expect that this number will be maybe double this by this time next year. Between the two, it's $1 million. We've also been focused on risk management. That's a huge part of our budget. As you can see here, workers' comp for the last 2 years has been much more affordable, and this is alternative to a trend that is in the risk management world. So we are semi-self-insured. We purchase stop loss, if you will, through the risk management pool, which Commissioner Mulway is a part of. But there's a fairly large gap between incident and where that kicks in. So we do have the ability to control costs by keeping employees safe at work. Our employee wellness fund, we spent about an additional $1 million. We've got two fundamental problems here. Pharmacy spend, which I think is largely corrected in the current year budget, was 39.5% of our cost, and we had a fairly high number of high-cost claimants. So that's people that cost more, that have claims that are more than $62,500. And about 35% of our total claims came from 37 folks who were high-cost claimants. So we have chronic unmanaged disease, and we're starting biometrics back in the fall. So I'm confident over time that we can change this curve. But for 23-24, as you can see, net paid claims went from 5.9 to almost 7, right at $7 million, about an 18% increase. And you can see that here in the monthly claims, going from $555,000 to $643,000. I'm going to transition to the other 4 areas of focus on your strategic plan. Just quickly hit some highlights. Broadband. During 23-24, we did execute on 2 great grants, one with Spectrum, one with Brightspeed, that identified 1,850 relative new locations, BSL's broadband serviceable locations, as well as one of 35 counties in North Carolina that capitalized on the CAP, continuing access to broadband, which added another 750. So roughly 2,500 new rooftops in Burke County are now aligned to get symmetrical 1,000 up, 1,000 down broadband over the next 18 months or so. And we believe that that does accomplish the policy goal of 90%. There's other programs coming. We will get well above 90%. But at least for this year and for this board, you can feel accomplished in that goal. We have finished a housing study and are working hard, met with using that. As you recall, Bowen National Research conducted it. We know that supply is far less than demand. We know that housing cost, average list price, has gone up more than 25% in 12 months. It's over $404,000 as of March. And we're looking for innovative ways to either review development code to make that cost less impactful to people, as well as ways to that maybe incentivize builders with local infrastructure development. There's a couple of projects that we've already began talking with local municipalities about how we may be able to support that. And you've maintained your momentum to have public education. Commissioner Britton and I were with the school superintendent and the board last week, and we showed an optic of regional public education systems. In Burke County was the single only system that in the last 2 years had seen a reduction in average classroom size and ratio and an increase in teacher supplement. So that the investments that you all have made are coming to fruition. Under your economic growth and sustainment, we just talked about the airport agreement. That's continuing to really create innovative tax base. Last October, we partnered with BDI to do a shell building feasibility study where they studied the entire region and largely looking for ways to be, again, these ideas of innovative economic development, how to use that report now to put assets and inventory and product in place so that we can recruit economic industry. And we're also working on this utility infrastructure, water, sewer, asset inventory analysis to continue to right-size our water system, not only because we want it to operate in a surplus, but because we want to be able to expand it to provide clean water and sewer to people who want it, but also to use it as an economic development tool. Public safety. Very proud of the work that this board has done in public safety. You've increased funding over your last 2 budgets by 26%. That means people get radios that they need. That means that they're paid the way that is a market-driven. Of that $6.6 million increase, 73% has been to law enforcement and EMS. And of that, 58% has gone to people, which has really allowed us to become a leader as far as where people would like to go to work. We've also introduced, as I mentioned, interfacility transport's becoming a bigger component of our call volume for EMS. So we've instituted a dedicated transport team. We've introduced community paramedic program, which is not only doing community paramedicine, but also post-overdose response. We're working on our continuity of operations and emergency operations plan, as well as transitioning through reclassification, adding to our law enforcement staffing. I'll close with your focus area being an employer of choice. I do think you've had meaningful movement here as well. As you all know, we had this unfavorable trend of voluntary separations, which has largely subsided. And we closed last year at about 10% turnover. Today we're at 7%. So people are choosing to be a part of the team. Over time, that's going to create a more tenured workforce, and again, help us pursue this idea of high performance that our community can trust and buy into, and they get the service delivery that they deserve. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my summary. You have the full text in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I do have about 12 questions to ask. Is that okay?
And we'll wait on those some other time if you don't mind.
Just kidding. Great presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And receiving tonight's Endurance Award is Dr. Katie Varnado. And,
Motion to accept.
yeah, can I have a motion to accept that report from Mr. Manager?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Those in favor, signify by that with the hand. And Katie, I think the real test is, can you keep us awake?
To keep myself awake.
Madam Clerk, can you check the air? I think it has completely laid down. That might help us to stay a little more
I will
focused.
be brief.
Asking you, somebody in here check the air. It's getting hot in here.
So
Not that I thought you would do anything if you went over there, Madam Clerk.
Good evening.
Yeah.
So my presentation for you today is on the heels of our annual impact report that is due to be submitted to the NCACC/DOJ September 27th. So this is an overview of the impact that we've had through our opioid settlement approved strategies for the past year. These are our global indicators. Many of these you can find on the opioid settlement dashboard, but a lot of these we've been able to get data in real time through our overdose fatality review team, particularly the certified overdose fatalities. And in 2023, you can see that there were 40 certified overdose fatalities at the time that I wrote this report. And since then, there have been more certified overdoses. And the reason that that number is changing is because our certification for death certificates is at least a year behind. So we're having to look at death certificates in the North Carolina Vital Record System to access pending death certificates to get an idea about what's happening in as real time as possible as far as overdose fatalities. We're seeing an average of 1 overdose call per day to EMS, and a point-in-time snapshot of the jail population demonstrated 60% of the jail population had a history of substance use charges, and 80% of those individuals also had probation and parole violations. There were 177 kids in the foster system due to parental substance use in 2021, and we have consistently been in the top 10 in the state for ED visits due to opioid overdose. So this is a EMS biospatial map, and you can see the yellow and orange dots are high volume calls for overdose through EMS, and that is along the I-40 corridor.
Do we have an answer for that? Why I-40 corridor?
So the theory is that people are bringing drugs through I-40, and that's where people are picking up substances and overdosing along those areas. Our overdose fatalities are mostly happening in residences, but the actual number of overdoses that are non-fatalities are happening along this corridor.
Do we have a plan with law enforcement to address that?
So law enforcement has joined the overdose fatality review. We have Major Norman and Chief Sharp from Valdez helping us look at the drug seizure data and the arrest data so that we can approach this from both a supply and demand technique. But to that point, the next step would be Highway Patrol. So the EMS Biospatial Overdose Response Report, at the time of this report, had 734 suspected overdose calls, 13 fatalities in 2024, and the distribution was slightly more males than females, all within the range of 20 to 60, or the majority in the range of 20 to 69, which is our prime working and family years. Our ED overdose trend has actually significantly decreased. So we're seeing about half of what we saw last year, and we're accrediting that to our harm reduction efforts where we're getting naloxone and peer support in the communities, and people are accessing services outside of the emergency department. So what's concerning here is that although our emergency department visits are going down, the rate of overdoses are not. So that indicates that we need to invest in treatment resources in the community. So the approved strategies, we have 6 altogether. The opioid settlement coordinator, which is my position, naloxone distribution, qualitative data collection, videography project, strategic plan completion, overdose fatality review, public health and safety team, and peers partnering for excellence. And those total approved expenditures are $436,500 through June 30th of 2025. So Margaret also just finished the financial part of our impact report, and our actual expenditures through the end of the fiscal year were $147,521, with a remaining amount of $5,511,892, and an interest earned balance of $182,000. So the local spending plans are all published on NC Core. It's all public knowledge. So if you are curious about what other counties are doing, there are 60 local governments that are reporting spending plans, and a lot of those are doing option A, and some are starting to do option B items. So this is some of the work that I've done over the last year, and part of the impact report is to report on the number of collaborative strategic planning meetings that we've had. So the Burke County Opioid Response Team, which was a coordination group developed around planning for a facility, continued to meet, and over the last year we've met at least 10 times, and we've developed work groups from that to address priority areas that were trending in the general group conversation, and those were supporting and growing treatment services, workforce development, prioritizing our local data, faith and healing partnership, and justice-involved systems. And then last year we had 2 budget resolutions that were approved, and we had our annual community meeting in May of this year. Another big piece of my job is to look at the different programs and priorities that are already happening and build on that and braid those funding streams together. And that includes our BJA grants, Dogwood grants, and also looking at grant opportunities for sustainability for the different programs that we have going on. So our naloxone distribution, we had a resolution last year of $10,000 from opioid settlement funds to purchase naloxone, and we were able to purchase around 240 kits, which included 500 doses of naloxone. In addition to that, we were able to pursue naloxone from the state and from grant funding, and the total amount that we were able to bring in was $52,000 worth of naloxone that we've been distributing, mostly, mostly to individuals, but a high amount to the school system. So we have naloxone training scheduled for every school in Burke County, and my team has trained 13 schools and almost 300 school individuals so far. So we're saturating the community with naloxone, and naloxone is helping us also as a teaching tool to talk about what an overdose looks like, how to get help, and how to access resources. The qualitative data videography project is intended to inform our strategic plan with the voices of people that are living and have lived experience. And so far, we've interviewed 8 individuals and are working on finalizing that video project that will include a transcript for our strategic plan, but also a method for us to educate the community about what it means to be in recovery and how people get there and what we can do as a community to support that. The strategic plan is also in process. We're looking at having that presented to you all around the time of your budget retreat. And so the consulting group, community education group, will present those non-binding recommendations to you, and you'll have the opportunity to review the strategic plan. That includes a long-term spending plan around Exhibit B strategies. So this will help us unlock Option B in the North Carolina MOA, and that will be, those will be those longer-term strategies that don't fall under Exhibit A. The OFR FAST team has been meeting since October of last year, and we have drafted a public health and safety team dashboard that includes some of those key indicators that we went over, including EMS calls, telecommunication calls, hospital presentations, overdose fatalities, and suspected fatalities, so that we can start managing that in as real time as possible. Instead of waiting for the state to give us the information, we can start pushing it up and saying, this is what's happening here, and here are the trends that we're noticing as we're going through this data. And one of those is a lot of the fatalities from the pending death certificates that we're reviewing, the majority of them worked in manufacturing. So that's a key indicator for us to start having interventions with our manufacturing companies and help supporting EAP or access to a naloxone or other resources in those places.
Chairman, can I ask a quick question real quick before it slips my mind? Why are the death certificates backlogged? Where is the bottleneck in that? Do you know?
The best answer that I have is that there's a staff shortage at the Office of Medical Examiners at the state, and mostly these are behind for toxicology, and I'm not sure what that has to do with it, but the toxicology reports are taking a really long time to get back, and I don't know if you know any more about that, if you've heard any more about it.
No, you're exactly 100% correct. It's just staff shortages in the state. They just can't get through. And toxicology reports take a long time according to them.
Right, and so at our last OFR FAST meeting, the medical examiner actually came, and he talked about the death certificates that are certified, and a lot of them are not certified as overdoses, and we were actually having this conversation back here, that they're classified as anoxic shock and other things. So we really are diving into what's happening to get a picture of the number, the most accurate number that we can, so that we can start measuring an improvement over time.
You're going to have to tell me what anoxic shock is.
I'm assuming that it's deprivation of oxygen. So when a person experiences overdose, they actually lose the instinct to breathe, and they die from suffocation. So
if the toxicology indicated a substance, why would that not be considered an overdose?
at that point, according to the medical examiner, and I hope I don't misquote him, but when the deaths are coded that way, they don't have enough time to do the labs. So the medical examiner is certifying it in the hospital, and if the hospital doesn't have the labs or hasn't sent the labs in anywhere, it's just certified as anoxic shock, and a toxicology report isn't done. So I think, Commissioner Burns, when you asked me last year how many overdose fatalities we have, I'm sure you weren't expecting to get a whole research report on why we don't really know, but I think it's important for us to keep figuring out what we don't know so we can figure out how to know what's really happening, and then how to make those interventions that accurately address it. Our PPE group is our peer support specialist that convene, and with the goal of enhancing peer support. We have a peer support specialist desert in our area. We don't have trainings going on here. We've been working with the community college to see how we can embed peer support certification in the community college, but also have a group of people with lived experience that can inform our strategic plan and our long-term goals based on their lived experience, but also mentor to and coach new peer support specialists as they're coming up in the field and need that support system to be successful in their roles. And this also creates a pipeline to Health and Human Services in the college system.
Mr. Chairman.
And then our Western Regional Partnership Development is actually funded through Dogwood, but I wanted to give you all an update on that. We have been having meetings with the opioid settlement managers.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm following along, and I do understand that charting a path to anywhere requires a very clear understanding of where you are. Do you feel like we have a clear understanding of where we are, or are we still developing that?
I think we have a better understanding of where we are, and also like even to the point of what types of, where people are overdosing and what kind of jobs they have, and what it looks like here on a local level, so that when we're looking at actually doing direct interventions, we have a really good idea about what that needs to be. So I think someone from the NCACC said this a couple weeks ago to the opioid settlement coordinators that were meeting for the Western Regional Partnership. So we brought all the people together from 11 counties and said, we want to form this partnership to look at things that we can address as a region, and that's workforce development, housing insecurities, those bigger things that it takes more than one county to really approach. And all of them said, we need to do something. We need some action items. And our person from
I get that they're talking about the destination, but I guess I'm talking about the journey and having a clear understanding of, we can put a pin in the map today. This is where we are. This is where we want to go. Then we can plot a path to get there. I'm just not sure I understand. And I'm not a doctor, so.
Well, I guess it's a complex question, because we have a better understanding of overdose fatalities. What we don't have a better understanding of is like the parental substance use was 3 years behind. So we're pulling pieces of data together to paint the picture of what's happening, but it's still a work in progress. So our 2024-25 priorities are stemming from those conversations that we had in the opioid coordination group, and that is prioritizing the local data to try to understand better what is happening here, and also monitor the changes in that data, support treatment programs and capacity, faith and healing partnership, workforce development, and our Justice Involved continuum as we look at programs like Recovery Corps, LEAD, and the Jail MAT program. And that is the final presentation of your evening. I meant to put on there in that second slide with all the meetings, a 4-hour-long county commissioner meeting.
All right, thank you, Katie. Any questions? I know we've asked some along the way. Any other questions for Katie at this time?
I do. I did want to announce that today the North Carolina Journal of Medicine published their September volume, and our health director, Danny Scalise, was a guest editor for that. And Dr. Gupta from the White House Office of National Drug Control and Policy has an article in there. In the first paragraph, he's calling out the work that we're doing in Burke County. So I'm really proud to have represented you all for the last year, and I have faith and hope that we're moving in the right direction to save some people's lives. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Katie, for being here and staying long for us tonight. And we certainly appreciate the work you're doing. And
We certainly do need to appreciate the work she's doing, because she's a one-woman show. And she's going to turn in the best report to NCACC than any of the counties. There is a lot of counties that have put a lot of dollars into researching and gathering data. Unfortunately, Randy, we're just in the first throes of gathering data to kind of paint a picture of where we're at. We just don't have the people to do it. We're going to have to make some hard decisions in the future about what we're going to do in Burke County as far as staff, to pull together what we truly need to do. Katie's doing everything she can do by herself. Like I say, she'll turn in the best report, I think, in the state, because we're, like I say, we've been recognized in Burke County for all the good things that we have done so far, but we are not where we need to be. The Restart program in Caldwell County is a great program. We need the peer specialist, and I'm glad we're working with the college to try to get some training for the peer specialists. They've actually, Brian, and I think you're well aware of this, those fellows have ever been made county employees. So it's not many times felons get hired as county employees in a peer specialist project, but those are some of the things that we need to be taking a long, hard look at. But again, thank you for everything that you've done so far.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? All right, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to accept this report as presented. Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. This brings us to our reports and comments from staff and commissioners. I'll start down there with Ms. Margaret.
I'd like to report that we did receive the National Award for Governmental Reporting for our audit for last year. We were notified last week, so great job
Fantastic.
for our team in finance and those that support us getting us reports.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you for all the work you guys are doing. Mr. Attorney.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Madam Clerk.
On behalf of Animal Services and Animal Services Foundation, would like to thank Mike Willis. He got Animal Services a new Kemet trailer, and it has been wrapped and is very adoption friendly. So we look forward to showing that off soon.
What kind of trailer did you say?
Kemet, it's an emergency, a big long trailer that you can house dogs and cats in. I can show you a picture.
I still don't know. Okay, Mr. Manager.
Nothing for me, sir.
Just happy birthday to the U.S. government, 237 years old today, the United States Constitution.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. Mr. Burns.
I do want to say I was pleased to be able to attend the groundbreaking with some of the rest of you guys at the Western Piedmont Community College's new Emergency Services Training Center. I look forward to seeing what kind of asset that can be for our county. And I also want to say something on a personal note. You know, I spent a lot of time poring over the decisions that we have to make. And, you know, at times I feel like I'm voting against my own best interest. And sometimes I am, but I'm voting in the interest of 90,000 people. And that's the key. You know, in reference to the, some of the things that we heard earlier, I poured through Facebook pages and websites over the weekend to make sure I didn't miss anything. And there was a comment made tonight about, I think it was 3,500 people had signed, Burke County residents had signed the petition. Well, if you look at their own data online, only 24% of those who signed that petition are from Burke County. The balance of those either are out in the state of North Carolina. I think there was 9% from McDowell County, but a significant portion of them were from other. They were from out of the county. So if you look at 90,000 people, and even if you take it at its face and say that 833 people in Burke County signed the petition, that's 0.9% of our population. I will never make decisions based on emotion. I'll always make them based on fact. And that's my commitment to the people in Burke County.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Vice Chair.
Well, I wasn't going to make a comment, but I'm going to follow up on what Randy said. You know, I actually had some friends that signed that petition months and months and months ago at the early beginning when we got all this innuendo and false information being promoted by certain individuals, a lot of which were out of state. And then I don't know, you and I, Randy, have talked, and other commissioners, how many people have come back to us and say they wish they ignore their signature on the petition because they would have never signed it if they'd have known the full story and the full information. So, yeah, those numbers, I agree 100% with Commissioner Burns. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Carter.
Yes, sir, I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. I don't have anything other than some courtesy reminders. October the 2nd, Board of Commissioner pre-agenda meeting at 3 o'clock. This includes consideration of construction contracts for our new buildings for animal services and EMS. October 4th, EMS Station 1 Animal Shelter groundbreaking at 9:30 a.m. Again, asking our youth groups and school groups to think about helping us by leading in our Pledge of Allegiance to begin our meeting. Also remember to spay neuter your pets, cover your loads, going to the landfill, don't litter, pick up trash. And a reminder that the county offices are closed in observance of Veterans Day on November the 11th. So, Madam Clerk, I'll recognize you for vacancy announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. We have the following opportunities for citizens to be engaged in county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committees, City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ, Burke County Board of Health Advisory Board, Hickory Regional Planning Commission, Drexel Planning Board, ETJ alternate, Burke County Board of Adjustment we just filled, and the Burke County Planning Board.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Brings us to item number 13, closed session. We do not have need for a closed session meeting tonight. So with that, as painful as it may be, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by lifted hand. Mr. Carvin, you gonna stay here? You're overridden. We stand adjourned. And thank you to all of those who stayed with us tonight. Appreciate your attendance very much.